Hello everyone, welcome back, good to see you all again. So, briefly, the reason I've been away from streaming for the last few days, well, it depends where you're watching me from. If you're watching me from places that I'm not temporarily banned from, like YouTube, then it's because I've been trying to fix my sleep pattern, a bunch of other stuff got in the way. And if you're watching me usually on YouTube, then you still won't be able to see me today, because I'm temp banned from YouTube for, I can't even remember now, medical misinformation about the, not medical, just quote-unquote misinformation about the election. You don't censor something that is false. At least not on a platform-wide basis. There's very few reasons that you would do it. Anyway, hello everyone. Couple of quick things. You'll see that, as I said would happen, the multiplier is now at ×4 initially, because it's gone up to ×2 at base, because it's, Young as I has been there for a long time. So it'll go down to ×3 after 5 minutes, and then ×2 after another 5 minutes. Also, the uptime counter in the top left there, I don't expect to respect that today. I expect I'll go for as long as I feel like, and then let the rest of it carry on to the next stream, because I'm tired, because sleep pattern is only just back in the right place. And while I have been not streaming, I've been working on code. So I won't go into any more detail because I did it in the pre-show. But you can expect to start seeing new features cropping up soon that might be better. But I'm still at the early stages. It'll take a while to get things back to the same sort of practical level as the current user bot. But once it gets there, it'll be much tidier. It's much easier to write new stuff. Right. Good. So, honk, basically. That's been most of the news for the last few days. There have been one or two other stories, and we'll try and cover them too. There were a couple of UK stories I put in repository, which I thought were interesting. But they're not essential to cover. They just might be fun or funny. But mostly just honk, it has to be said. So, chat, I'm going to do a content vote to start us off, and I strongly recommend that you either pick memes or news, whether you would like to start with the funny or start with the actual news. But either way, it's very likely to be honk, because honk has been honking a lot. And yes, I will be talking about GoFundMe. Petrichor says no sound. Has anyone else got sound? Yeah, thanks, Petrichor. All right, let's see. Most of you are saying news. There's by the way, usually I say I have between 8 and 20 memes or stories on most of these streams. Well, today I have 17 news stories and 57 memes. And I'm still behind in Meme Shrine in Cabal by 3 days. So that probably is about 70 or 80 if we include those that are in Meme Shrine I haven't even looked at yet. So we have lots and lots of memes that we can go through. Most of them are honk, it has to be said. All right, so more votes for news. We will start with the actual news. Let us begin with the thing I want to talk about, right? This was not the earliest thing that happened, and this is only one thing that refers to it. There's plenty of other things that refer to it. But this guy is recommending, for those seeking GoFundMe refunds, consider doing a chargeback instead. Each chargeback will cost GoFundMe $15 or so. If they get enough chargebacks, their merchant account rates will also increase, which could end up costing the company millions of dollars. Hit them where it hurts. Now, there's lots of things to comment on here. Firstly, I'm not sure it's 15. I think I read it might be 50 actually, but either way, an amount. Secondly, yeah, it seems like a good idea. But thirdly, let me give the full context here. GoFundMe did something that I admit I should have said that I was predicting. But I did predict. I just didn't say it on stream, which is dumb. I was meaning to, but then I wasn't streaming. I was going to say this, and I realized it, I think, just after the last stream I did. I realized, oh shit, GoFundMe's going to pull that. That's 8 mil or whatever it is that they're just going to pull, because we already know they're ideological. Only question is, why the hell were they using GoFundMe in the first place? Now, when they said they have enough funds to stay there for, what was it, 2 to 4 years? Was that all from GoFundMe? Were they saying we have the funds from GoFundMe? If so, this is being catastrophically mismanaged. If they're saying they have the funds, but someone else has the funds, they don't have the funds. So I hope that it wasn't just from GoFundMe, because that was always going to be rescinded, to put it nicely. Stolen, essentially. Now, legally it may not be stolen, but in every other sense it is. They're doing it for obviously ideological grounds. Now, you can say it's not directly ideological, but it's influenced by an ideology which is lying about the event. GoFundMe's reason given, I think, was that it's become an occupation or an unlawful occupation. Protests can become unlawful at the worst of times. But either way, it's still an ideological opposition. Like, at that point, you are just siding with the people that are being protested against. It would be better for GoFundMe to not side with anyone. It is ultimately their prerogative, but it's also still our prerogative to criticize them for misusing their prerogative. Now, it's possible that they were threatened to do it. Not necessarily directly, not necessarily personally, but just in terms of legally threatened, which is understandable. I suppose if you were in that situation, chat, would you stand up to the government? And then, if the question was, would you stand up to the government if you opposed the ideology of the people you'd be defending? Possibly yes in both cases, and you'd be highly principled if you did. But still, they probably made it difficult for GoFundMe, because if they hadn't, GoFundMe probably would have pulled it almost straight away. I imagine that if it is ideological, it's more so that the pressure is being put on them because of ideology, not so much that they have ideology themselves, but clearly they have demonstrated themselves to be amicable to that ideological pressure in the past. So you shouldn't be using GoFundMe for anything ideological, and certainly not for something that could be interpreted as illegal, which this certainly could be. So yeah, just a little bit of advice for the future. Don't use GoFundMe unless it's for a small, hidden or a non-political thing. So, as I said, I should have mentioned that a few days ago, and I was going to on the first stream I did, and then it happened. So I did essentially predict it. I just didn't say I did. So yeah, that's bad news. Does anyone know? Does anyone happen to know if they have funds other than those that were in GoFundMe? Well, Bright, if you want to support my work specifically, not the truckers, then yes, fund.oozloo.net is the place. And if I feel up to it today, because I said I'm starting off pretty tired, then there will be a premium live show at the end for those of a $2 patron tier on Subscribestar or higher. And even if there isn't one today, there is one usually. We've done several, they've all been pretty good. So if you go to fund.oozloo.net, sign up at a $2 tier, and then link your Subscribestar and Discord accounts, and then make sure you're in Cabal on Discord, then you should get your roles very quickly, within about 5 minutes. And then you'll be able to access the premium show, which happens after the main show and the outro. But not necessarily today. We'll see if I feel up to it later. Right, so apparently they have been given crypto, says Kittler. Well, that'll be fucking useful. Well, I mean, maybe they managed to convert it. Hablar says the truckers just need to start burning down the city, then they'll get their funding back. Yeah, I mean, it, as you said, works for others. Here the truckers are now using Give, Send, Go and have broken the 2 million mark. Well, okay, on the one hand, I think I've vaguely heard of Give, Send, Go, but the fact that they've already broken 2 million is good, because it means that the people that contributed before and then it got taken away by GoFundMe, they don't think, it was all a scam, I'm not contributing again. Like, a lot of people are in this for the long haul. They're not just fair weather, like, I feel right now like chipping in. No, they actually believe in the cause for it to have already hit 2 million. And it's not even the crescendo anymore. Well, I suppose it might be. Depends what else happens. But that's good. I mean, 2 million surely is enough to keep that going for at least a few weeks. Even if you assume that the people there don't have their own things that they can fund. They've been collecting cash donations on site and material donations. I figured that they would, especially because they're mostly working class. They probably would be more prone to using cash. Good. Harder to apprehend it. Though I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of city businesses restrict services to the truckers. I think we talked about this before, that anyone that does it really overtly is going to lose a lot of public support. But Not sure how much they would lose, and also, especially as this continues, and also they could do it somewhat covertly, probably, to their loss. If they're a big franchise, then they could just close down the Ottawa branch. Wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, there you go. Deng says hotels and malls all closed downtown. It's not surprising. Well, best of luck to the truckers. It's just going to keep getting more difficult, but you have to stick it out. This literally is a game of chicken. There is actually a fair chance Trudeau will blink. You got to keep going. Yeah, the Corona. That's one of the things I have, I think. When the government told towing companies to tow the trucks away, they just joined the protest instead. Avalon says the authorities will likely try to block any supplies to them. Good fucking luck. They are the supply chain. It will be a struggle on both sides. But the truckers probably will be able to get enough resources through to keep themselves going. I would guess. Another thing, I was pleasantly surprised, actually, by some reports that the police and I think maybe the army, or either way, the authorities in the area, are refusing to oppose or attack in any way the truckers, which is good news. That I don't think that would be happening if they were being extremely belligerent, doing anything overtly illegal. Simply occupying the area and being, I don't know if they are, but from reports I've heard, they are at least being somewhat reasonable to those around them, with the exception of the honking, which is part of the protest. They're not like we heard reports of them shitting in people's gardens. We heard reports of them shitting on graves. Heard reports of them beating the homeless. Frankly, I don't believe any of those. I'd be curious if anyone has any corroboration of that. But failing those, their relative civility will help them in not being brutalized by the local authorities. Shitting on graves. Yeah, Patrick, apparently there was a claim that they had shit on the grave of the unknown soldier, which is in the area. However, there was footage or a picture later that showed no sign of any shit on or near it. Don't know if the times lined up, but the picture was no confirmation either way. Deng says portable toilets everywhere, no public shitting. That's what I was saying they should do early on. Not sure if I said that on stream, but Bright says beating the homeless, you mean doing the police's jobs for them? Controversial, that one. Even with the honking, they are trying to keep it quiet in some areas at night so the locals can get sleep. It does get to the point where, like, the locals, if they are just forced to stay awake 24/7 for several days, then it won't matter about how civil you are. They will just physically attack you eventually. Or try and leave the city, which may cause other issues. But then again, they might be able to because they can't get the cars past the fucking blockades. So, yeah, I think I would agree that leave at least some time during the night that you aren't constantly honking. But, yeah, during the day, absolutely. Maybe every 2 or 3 days honk at night as well, because you have to make an impact. It's also about, it's not about fucking with the local Ottawans either. It's about fucking with Trudeau. But by fucking with the local Ottawans, of course, they're going to put all the pressure on the truckers initially to stop. But then eventually, when they realize that's not working, they're going to try putting pressure on Trudeau to say, look, can you just give them what they want? Eventually, they'll start doing that. So that's what you're aiming for. You're looking for that period of time. Oh, thank you, Daka. 1 second. Daka says, speaking of Hong Kong, am I the only one that finds a little sus that Crony's PC died just as the Honkageddon started? Also, F's in chat for Guru's social credit score. I didn't see either of those things, actually. But that's interesting. Is Crony's PC back now? I haven't seen any of her recent streams. But yeah, that's interesting. I know that she is... Actually, I won't go into details, potentially doxing. But I don't know if she lives in Canada or not. I'll say that much. I don't know. Maybe someone else does. On a completely unrelated matter, Demon Dice did a bunch of content recently. I see that sort of happening with a few of them. I wonder if it indicates potential changes. Probably not. She was speaking like it didn't. Crony went out to quack at the protests. Maybe she went out to quack with the protesters. You never know. Like, there's enough people in the Hololive that one of them, surely just one of them, must have sensible adult politics, rather than all this baby shit that's so pervasive these days. Right, let's go for the next thing, shall we? So, sticking with the news stories I have, there's 17 tabs open. Let's see what I can find here. So what's this one? So this is Trudeau's statement from a few days ago. Remember, the stuff I have here is from since I last streamed. So some of this is a few days old. But hey, treat this as sort of a catch-up stream. I'm catching up with everything. You get to hear my opinion on everything that's happened in the last few days. It's not all completely up to date, but it's pretty close. So Trudeau said the following. I think I'll comment as I go along. He said, "I know this pandemic is frustrating. It's frustrating that after 2 years, we're not done fighting COVID-19, but over the past few days, Canadians have been shocked and frankly disgusted by the behavior displayed by some people protesting on our nation's capital." So, responding to the first tweet first. I'll do it in 3 bits, I think. Yes, it is frustrating, but it's not exactly the pandemic that's frustrating. Sure, for a short time initially, the pandemic was reasonable to blame, maybe for 6 months, but not after that. After that, it was just the government being frustrating. Governments. We essentially at this point are done fighting COVID, Justin, and arguably we have been for a while. Even if we assume Delta was as bad as governments say, Omicron certainly wasn't particularly threatening. In fact, most reports I've seen are that it's less threatening than the flu. Possibly significantly less. So general standard caution amongst all people during flu season, as probably everyone should have been doing anyway, but nothing enforced. Should have been the way it was. Over the past few days, he says Canadians have been shocked and frankly disgusted. But you don't speak for Canadians, Justin. Like that, I know that you're the representative of the nation politically, diplomatically, but that doesn't mean you speak for every Canadian. That really is an important distinction. If they were to go to the polls right now and they didn't vote for you, then it would be pretty proven that you don't speak for all of them. And in voting for a leader, that lasts for several years, but in opinions on every given topic, that isn't just assumed that whoever's the leader speaks for everyone on every topic. I wonder, is there a poll? Is there a data on the opinions of the Canadian public? How many of them are for, how many of them are against? And remembering that even if it's less than half for, that's still plenty. That's still plenty to make a difference. You wouldn't need more than half. Of course, more than half would help to indicate that that Justin is just straight up wrong here. But either way, he can't assume he's right. He's making a universal or at least general statement when he really doesn't know that. So that strikes me as cheap. Like, not just deceptive, but desperate. The idea that he's trying to misrepresent Canadians as being on his side. He's trying to appeal literally to the majority. But I don't think he can safely do that. He then goes on to say, "I want to be very clear, we're not intimidated by those who hurl abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless." Let's respond to that quickly. 1, yes, you are. Very clearly you are. And we'll get into where you went soon after. And the claims about hurl abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless. Frankly, I've heard a lot of claims from in and around the protest over the past few weeks. And I don't believe a single fucking one of them. Claims about their bad behavior. I'm not saying they're not true. I'm just saying I don't believe them yet. They may be true. Some of them may be. And certainly initially, there's more likely to have been issues. Maybe before there were portaloos installed. Maybe maybe 1 or 2 people were being dicks to the locals. If so, I don't doubt that's over now. They probably did a bit of self-enforcement. Frankly, as well as it seems to have gone, is a testament to the good intentions of the people there and their civility. Of course, minus the fact that it's a protest and they're being deliberately uncivil with the horns. But every other claim I've heard sounds to me like it could easily be fabricated. What were they? He said, hurl abuse at small business workers I don't. The only source we would have to go on that is their reports. That's all it would take. Them saying to the media that that's happening, and they would be motivated to say that kind of thing because it might get the truckers who are beeping all day long gone quicker, and then steal food from the homeless. That is probably just a not misunderstanding, but a misconstrual by someone. They probably did something that someone interpreted as being that, and they just told someone else that that's the press that that's what it was. If there's any basis to that at all. He then goes on to say, we won't give in to those who fly racist flags. You mean the one guy in the protest who was flying a Confederate flag, which is not inherently racist. He was also the only one with like full face coverings, which implies maybe he doesn't want people to know that he's not really one of the people. And why would he fly a Confederate flag at a trucker protest? Now, I did see pictures of Nazi flags. Don't know if those pictures were even genuine. But if they were genuine, again, it looked like a significant minority. And in the pictures I saw overhead, the drone shots, nothing. Maybe the Nazi flags were even from a different fucking event for all I know. But I wonder, Deng, you have been there. Have you seen any flags that are, well, any Confederate or Nazi flags or anything else similar? Anything that seems deliberately provocative? And even then, it wouldn't surprise me very much if there were a few alt-right or otherwise racial lens-oriented people there. But Deng says none. Not a single one. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Deng, you've been there every day, haven't you? Or nearly every day. Lots of Gadsden flags, which makes sense. He's been there 5 days. What I'm trying to say is that at the very beginning, we saw pictures of Nazi flags and Confederate flags. Were you there on the first day? Or around the first day? Driven, I give it at least a 99% chance that Justin is Castro's son. I'm sure enough that I'm working on that assumption. Deng says none for the entire thing. So what would you guess then, Deng? Would it have been like a few isolated infiltrators who weren't really affiliated and were trying to spoil it by bringing flags? Or pure fakery? As an explanation for those images that we saw early on. Glowies. Well, that was the first option, yeah. Yeah, there's kind of the, we've seen evidence that the US sends glowies to these physical events. Good enough evidence. I think it's probably fair to assume that Canada does the same, but I shouldn't just assume it. I'll leave that contingent. Do you reckon from other events, Deng, that Canada does do the same? So, Justin Castro goes on, and we won't cave to those who engage in vandalism or dishonor the memory of our veterans. That's the grave of the unknown soldier. I would imagine that you could take the repertoire rattled off like it's a fucking programming array, rattled off one after the other like this, of grievances against them. You could take the sort of raw list style that he's used here, slightly abstracted, as an indication that this is the list of lies he designed to be told, and not simply the list of lies that have been compiled from other sources. It's possible, of course. But you may take it as an indication that he had something to do with each and every single one of these lies. But it's probably not true. It's probably just that some locals were upset about the protest, wanted to spread some lies to make it go away faster, and either some glowies or some photoshoppers were also trying to ruin it, and Justin's people just picked up on all of those things and put them in the long list for him. Either way, it doesn't seem like most of these things are actually true, if any, actually, in these grievances. Indeed. Classic. Undisclosed, but not unknown. We'll get to that soon. Justin Castro finishes off with the following. He says, there is no place in Canada for this behaviour. Well, I think around your palace, actually, is the answer. He says, so to those responsible, it needs to stop. You're responsible, Justin. And to those who join the convoy but are uncomfortable with the symbols of hatred and division on display, see if you can find any. He says, be courageous and speak out. Do not stand for or with intolerance and hate. Justin, if it's let's assume for a second, let's just assume that you have been misled. It's a wild hypothetical, I know, but let's just assume for a second that there were no offensive flags, and that the protesters weren't doing anything really dishonorable. That maybe one or two things right at the beginning, but that they've stopped since then, and that they've generally been pretty civil, with the exception of the horns, which are the core of the protest. Let's imagine, Justin, that all of your grievances here are gone. Then what would you say? Nothing you've said here, Justin, absolutely none of it addresses their concerns, which is not unheard of course, for a politician, but it does indicate, I suspect, that he does not have a good response to their concerns. If they were protesting that they demand to be given condominiums on the moon immediately, then his answer would be, we literally don't have enough, we don't have the resources, it would take way too much to get you there, and what would you do when you were there, etc., etc. Practical limitations. Now, would be cool, yes, but there's many practical limitations, and he would be listing them here. He probably would also be listing the other shit, but he would be listing the practical limitations first. It's not that if he had it's not that because he hasn't said anything, he doesn't have an answer, because there may be tactical reasons to avoid even mentioning it, even if you did, but it does indicate it. And I think we probably already know that the only justification he would give is government said so, like that meme where the different components of why you should trust COVID are disappear, why you trust vaccines are disappearing, and in the end it's just a government said so. That's the only one left after everything else has been disproven. So yeah, it's flack right now. He's seeing what will stick. The least damaging bullshit first, which is to find all the little tales that he can pick up from the area, no matter if they're lies or not, and all the currently trendy demonization terms. So just throw at them and see what happens. If that doesn't work, then he'll try something else. I don't doubt. Let's go to the next thing, which is this. Yeah. This actually isn't honk, but I'll just read this out quickly, and there's not much to say. It's not surprising. This Twitter user says Reuters is owned by Thomson Reuters, which in turn is majority owned by BlackRock. Pfizer is also owned by BlackRock. So when you see Reuters saying Pfizer is doing nothing wrong, both are owned by the same people. Reuters Foundation chairman is also board member at Pfizer. Yeah, not too surprising. So I've been thinking recently that I think some of this I've already said to you guys. That the culture war may be explicable. Well, two major factors. Because the first one, like foreign interference, I'm learning more about, but I already had figured out sort of how that works. At least conceptually for the culture war. But the second one is the wealthy and powerful in the West. And for a while I had no idea why they were doing any of this shit. Why they seemed to be manipulating the West. But I've, over the last few weeks, figured out more and more things. And I think marketing has got to the point where simply manipulating individuals into purchasing your product is not enough. And with the stagnation, relative, like the stability that happened in the 90s and noughties, I have a theory that allowed time for the rich and powerful to get too much of a foothold, to understand how to keep their power too well, and then they started implementing that a little later when they were actually threatened in about 2012 by the left at the time. So since then, they've moved on from, as I said, marketing to changing the total structure of society to be as amicable to big business as possible, as amicable to the wealthy and elite as possible, the wealthy, powerful, and evil as possible. One of the ways that they've done that is, and we saw this very early on, this was the first thing we saw, was that they found an ideology at the time that they figured that they could twist into something useful. And I'm still not 100% on exactly how and why it's useful to them, but I have a lot of ideas for it, which we call social justice or various other things. Cultural Marxism is one word that's used. I view these as the foot soldiers of our adversary. And then, of course, you've got, as a natural result of that, and I think this is something that they wanted, small pockets of radical right resistance started popping up, but really much smaller than I think they want. I think they would like a race war, and they're not getting it because perhaps their opponents are too smart, see through the bullshit, the game they're trying to make us play, straight through to the villain. But they've still got their foot soldiers interfering with everything. So I think it's wise to take up the position against the real enemy, not merely attack the left. Because, yes, there's plenty of issues with the left, and I do talk about it a lot. But overall, we should recognize that our enemy are the elites that are controlling the whole field. This, behind me, this is part of it. The society that they have engineered, socially engineered, is one in which you will find less and less and less division between large companies. More and more conglomeration of power. Thus, less competition, more stagnation, more corruption, more just general problems, which is what we're seeing. Anything that is corporate can be relied upon to promote propaganda, the corporate press, and the politicians that the corporations essentially own. And of course, because of the propaganda from the corporate press affecting the people and genuinely changing their opinions, the politicians don't even need to be fully owned by the corporations, because they'll be voted for on the basis of the lies in the press anyway. As I said before, I remain in this opinion that the press is the vanguard of the problems. It's the thing that causes the cycle right at the front. If we were to stop that, I think a lot of things might change. Anyway, next thing. So this is good news. According to this Twitter user, Finland joins England, Ireland, and Denmark in ending all COVID restrictions. That's good. Not all of Europe is there yet. I think Austria still has mandatory vaccinations nationwide. And of course, there are several nations that still have internment camps, and you could possibly call them in concentration camps. I don't know what's going on there. But yes, in Europe, there are more and more countries that are coming out of this now, or seemingly. Of course, it could ramp back up, but every time we get to this point, every time we get to a low point, it seems like it's less extreme when it comes back. At least, well, maybe at least here. There are obviously Austria only got that more recently. I suppose Europe is still a very mixed bag, but at least these countries, I expect, will stay out of any further restrictions, barring any ridiculous development, which I don't doubt we're going to see now. I suppose unless it becomes, if it is endemic and it comes back in a stronger form, like if something like the original strain or Delta, if we assume that was as dangerous as the original strain, which I'm still not sure about, if that comes back, they might increase it a bit, but I still think they would have a tough time here, especially going to anywhere near the full extent. Either way, this is a bit of good news. Next thing. Now, what was this? This is from Twitter. Yes. Israel calls on Amnesty International, I assume, not to release apartheid report. Israel has called on Amnesty International not to publish an upcoming report accusing it of apartheid. Yeah, that's not too good. So here's another little issue, one of those foreign influences. The US was too bloody successful, and so other nations realized, we actually get a lot more power in the world by just manipulating the US than trying to be strong ourselves. That's my initial guess in why the foreign influence has turned so much on the West. And we've got this collaboration of the foreign interests and the cancer that's homegrown as well. Possibly they both like each other. Maybe they both think they're using the other. But afraid to say, I think it's the international interest that will win that one in the end. Which means that the West loses if we continue like this. Next thing. Yes, I was going to mention this. So, update from Chad Williamson, the lawyer on the case from Rebel News. You can help the truckers in court by funding their defense, and there's a link there. I was going to say to this, one, let's assume that it's totally above board and genuine. Good, they've got a lawyer there. But two, some degree of caution is important, especially because of that logo in the top left there. Rebel News. Not sure I trust Rebel News. Either way, you will probably at some point find someone showing up at this protest who is trying to take advantage of the goodwill. I mean, when you hear that the truckers have raised 8 million, or whatever it was on GoFundMe, no matter what happened to it, people are going to flock there with the intention of getting a piece of that pie. So be careful who you give your money to. Especially on the basis of, oh, but it's for a good cause. Yeah, but are you a good cause? Are you part of that cause? Still be discerning, folks. I don't know if this guy's legit or not, but I suspect someone there isn't, even if it's just the glowies. Next thing. Yes. New. Top suicide hotline is collecting data from people's darkest moments and sharing it with a for-profit company that is using the data to build and sell customer service software. Yay! Sweet. Man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. This Peter Griffin man-made horrors meme is becoming a little too common for my tastes. Don't know if this story is true, but again, assume it is to start with so that we can comment on it, because one day it might be, even if it isn't today. Not too surprising that that's happening, but this is why there are pretty strict data privacy laws, at least in some places. I know that in Europe they're very strict, which probably is quite an impediment to people sometimes, but you avoid shit like this. I'm guessing this is in the US. I don't think this kind of thing could happen in Europe, and if not, there's a big fucking lawsuit on its way. I may have said that wrong. Either way, I don't think this could happen in Europe, is what I meant to say. And if it did, I imagine it's probably quite an easy lawsuit. Maybe there's a possibility to do that in the US as well. Not my area of expertise. Who was it recently that we were talking about with the suicide hotline? Maybe Falcoshin got his information sold. Not that I'm wishing that upon him. Though we really wish it upon us. Next thing. This is funny. So this is just a little feel-good story. Thanks to the Gateway Pundit for providing this one. The title is, We've Got COVID. Towing companies in Canada turned down requests from police and mayor to haul away trucks. Oh no. The towing companies from Canada have COVID. That's terrible. Well, I hope they get well soon. Let's have a look. Let's have a read. See if there's anything more to this, shall we? Towing companies in Alberta, Canada reportedly refused the requests from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to assist in the removal of trucks from Coutts Port of Entry on the north side of the Alberta-Montana border. Abe Martins from Zodus Car Transport, who also offers towing service, told the Western Standard, quote, "We are here with our trucks at the blockade, but we are participating and are in full support of the truckers." One of the largest towing companies in the area already said they don't want to get involved. Where was the important bit? 1 second. Yeah, that was that bit. There was an important bit in here somewhere. There's a video here. We'll have a look at that in a minute. So here's a tweet from someone who says the mayor of Ottawa called some tow companies and asked them to start towing trucks out of the city. The tow companies reply, "We've got COVID." Not a good excuse, frankly. There is a bit more here. Let's have a look at what this video is.
Okay, I just sitting in my truck here warming up. I just got a bunch of nice fruit dropped off to me. I was just talking to this gentleman and this nice lady came by and had something to share with everybody.
You want me to say it?
Yeah. What just happened there?
Okay, I was just talking to a local that lives right here in Ottawa. He's been here for 30 years. He knows what's happening. And he told me that the mayor of Ottawa he called the tow truck companies to start towing these semis off from the streets. And every company said they have COVID.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Justin. We'll be gone by yesterday.
Nice. I think a spamming of chads in order, chat. But yeah, this is good news. If there was no wide public support, they probably would already be gone. They do have potential. They're doing what I recommended. They're sticking it out. Deng, you were there, or anyone else that's there. What do you guys think in terms of, do you see it waning? Do you see it reducing? Or do you see it actually growing? Or at least staying the same? Not talking about the prediction per se, Deng, just what you've actually seen. I hope you're right, Deng. Do you think it's got larger or smaller since it started? Classic says, when I was there, it was double yesterday what it was last week. Good. Good, that would imply larger. Yeah, I can't really stop saying good things about it. The only big mistake I've seen so far is GoFundMe. But it looks like that probably isn't going to be a big problem, since they've got another source that will that they've already got a lot of money for. So, yeah, can't stop congratulating these guys. It's, as I said before, like in the culture war so far, if we take all the Anglosphere nations, for now let's just include UK, US, Canada, because they're the three that are relevant for this this example. We've had, the UK has been fairly active with Brexit and the 2019 political catastrophe that ended up pretty good with Boris, better than it could have been. And the US has been big and flamey with Trump, and of course that's where all the big shit's been going down. But Canada has been just letting the foot hit it in the face. But this is almost as big as Trump right now. This could lead to the end of Trudeau. It depends if he's willing to blink on this issue, and if he does, it's even possible then that he'll be no confidenced, or that he'll lose a lot of support. I mean, the more shit he throws at the truckers about them being Nazis, the worse it is for him if he capitulates. And he's already thrown a lot of shit at them. If he capitulates, he'll be capitulating to Nazis. He'll be letting hate win. So he may actually have pushed himself into a corner already that he will be unwilling to escape from. So yeah, Canada has jumped right up from about 0 degree of resistance on a large scale to actually quite a lot. So UK, US, Canada are in fairly comparative points in how much progress they've done towards the culture war being resolved. That's good. Classic has video for the tow truck companies. Let's see if Rumble will play.
Once again, I've been contacted. My phone's been exploding in regards to the towing and recovery industry going down to the U.S.-Canadian border at Coots and being asked to remove the truckers and vehicles that are blocking the border due to the Freedom Rally. So my phone's been exploding. So I thought I best just get on here and hopefully somebody listens to what I'm going to say. I think this is what we need to say. Due to COVID, we have no available trucks. Due to COVID, we have no available personnel to help with your request. If they continue asking, due to COVID, we are unavailable to go. This is what Justin Trudeau said to all of us. Now, there are several companies down at the border out of Calgary, which doesn't look so good. And they have been requested, and there's some videos out there that are showing them being ready and being protected. Look, if you're having to be protected by the police or some other law enforcement agency, do you not think it's the wrong thing to do? Now, maybe if it's a criminal investigation or something of that nature.
Yeah, that doesn't hold true often enough to be that confident about it. I know what he's saying. In this case, I think it does. And frankly, if the tow company has to be protected by the police, then it's at that point, it's not really a civilian operation anymore. And maybe they should be sending in either police qualified personnel or, get the vehicles and the police do it or something along those lines. For one thing, paramedics won't attend the scene unless it's confirmed safe by police. And those are emergency service workers. These are just private sector workers. So, I don't know, I just feel like the police are sort of like, I mean, apparently like they're willing to do it, so I suppose it's fine, but should the police be getting private workers to do this if they're having to protect them? I don't know. By the way, I think the point he's getting at here, though it's not what he said, is that the police in this case are serving the corrupt establishment against the people.
Or something when you're in your own jurisdiction, you might then need protection. Well, we all know what's going down at the border. So I've had people call all the way from U.S., Canada, East, West Coast about what's going on at the border. The only thing you should...
Can we have a quick one in chat? If you genuinely and without any derision thanks, Seb, find the Canadian accent to be comical, inherently comical. And want you to also give a little note on your one if you are yourself Canadian and still find it to be comical. This is a 7-minute video. I don't plan on watching the whole thing, but good to hear that there are people like him willing to just say no. Next thing. Okay, so this is 54 minutes of raw footage. We're not going to watch the whole thing, obviously, but I just thought that we'd skip through this a bit. It's from Otter Walks. There's something else I should know about that. But live Ottawa, raw footage, Freedom Convoy 2022. Let's just watch some little bits of it. Beeping's quieted down a bit.
Velocity in a number one comment. How's it going, everybody?
I don't see any Nazi flags yet. Skip ahead a bit. A lot of beeping still. Looks like they're all over the city, actually. In little bits here and there. Looks like a police blockade. Well, I mean, if the police are blockading an area, that's not much different than the truckers doing it. I guess they probably would get out of the way if someone needed to come through.
I'll eat later after this.
Says, we should be all in this together, no vax pass, vive la liberté, de choix, something. French, I guess. They got their hockey sticks out. Very Canada. Yes, honk, I think it is. Hitler, rather. I love the sound of many horns in the background. Just kind of sounds like a rousing orchestral crescendo sometimes. Probably not all the time. And I would imagine that having a 24/7 rousing orchestral crescendo would get annoying no matter how much you like orchestral crescendos if you're trying to sleep, especially. But yeah, the roads are not in use. They're just playing hockey on them. It's fun. They've essentially halted the city. I imagine perhaps someone who lives here could confirm that these streets are normally pretty busy. There's normally cars and other vehicles, lorries included, going to and fro all the time, possibly delivering supplies to the many businesses here, which are now not getting supplies, which is going to slow the city right down.
There we go. My apologies.
Neil's thing there? Public parking, yes, that's what the city is being renamed to. Well, those guys don't look like they're moving. Dang, says Central Financial District. So, yeah, this should be plenty busy. Classic says, I don't live in Ottawa, but I've been there, and yes, very busy. It's downtown of a capital, indeed. Yeah. Let's just stop now. A city can't survive without the traffic and bustle that would usually be here.
I think I'm gonna turn around at this gap here. Yeah, sure.
Lots of trucks is what I gather the main thrust of this footage. What do you guys think? Am I missing something? Is it a Trump? No, it's a fuck Trudeau. Some of them do look like Trump, though. Same color, similar font, and the TIU rather. So, trucks, generally, everything. Trucks. We may come back to this. There's quite a lot of it left. Next thing, though, for now. What was this? From Twitter. Yeah, this is not honk related. Or is it? Probably not. But let's have a look anyway. Black Lives Matter shuts down fundraising days after liberal states threatened legal action. What was the commentary on here? Investigation that exposed the charity's shocking lack of financial transparency. Interesting. There's more as well. So let's have a look. BLM shut down all of its online fundraising streams late Wednesday afternoon, just days after California threatened to hold the charity's leaders personally liable over its lack of financial transparency. The move comes less than a week after the Washington Examiner investigation found that BLM has had no known leader in charge of its $60 million bankroll since its co-founder resigned in May. California and what it took you this long to figure out the problems with BLM, Washington Examiner. You know that it's something like it's over 90% of their profits go directly to Act Blue, which is just a Democrat lobbying organization. Essentially, it is whether, fully under the wing of one intention or not, it's essentially a Democrat money laundering operation. It's basically a super PAC that people have been deceived into supporting because of, lies in the press. Because every one of the cases that is used to support Black Lives Matter ends up being the exact opposite of how it's reported. Breonna Taylor was in fact in the wrong. You just didn't hear the full story. Michael Brown was very much in the wrong. You didn't see the full story. George Floyd was in the wrong. You just didn't see the full story. The press just lied to you about it, etc., etc. Where was I? The seesaw fundraising activities blue states due to the failure of Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, the legal entity that represents the national BLM movement, to report information about its finances in 2020, the year it raised tens of millions amid the racial protests and riots that followed George Floyd's killing. Or suicide, depending upon how much of the data you read. Well, if the police had let him walk home, for one thing, he was about to drive home. But if they'd let him walk home, he would have just died of fentanyl on the way. Which might have been better for the nation, actually. Let's see what Zero Hedge is saying about this, shall we? I think it's a bit more recent. What Zero Hedge is saying? BLM has 60 days to come clean about financials after California DOJ sends scorching demand letter. Now, why would California be doing this? And I suppose the only conclusion we can draw is that the states aren't completely monoliths. They seem to be quite often, but maybe not completely. The leaders of Black Lives Matter have, or maybe it's an internal power struggle. Maybe BLM has served its purpose and the leaders are beginning to recognize that, and so they're trying to fuck around, and this is the response from the authorities. That's true, Chilgon. The leaders of Black Lives Matter have 60 days to produce information about the charity's $60 million bankroll, according to a letter from the California DOJ to the activist organization obtained by the Washington Examiner. And as the Examiner notes, the letter comes just days after they uncovered that BLM has no known leader in charge of its giant war chest since its co-founder resigned in May, and that the Los Angeles address they list on their tax filings is wrong. That's not good. The address of your leader is wrong on an international multi-million-dollar charity, quote-unquote. That's not good. The organization Black Lives Matter Global Network Foundation, Inc. is a delinquent with the Registry of Charitable Trusts for failing to submit required annual reports, reads the letter from California AG Rob Bonter. BLM is also prohibited from soliciting or disbursing charitable funds in California until it submits its 2020 Form 990. I love bureaucracy has killed BLM. It finally happened. Only in one state, but I wouldn't be surprised if this happens in plenty of other states too. The U says California was an automated response, okay? That may be true. Deng says election is over, controlled opposition not needed, pay up. Maybe, however, there will be other elections. That's interesting. Justin, from his retreat, is speaking out against female genital mutilation. Interesting how he needs to add the qualifier for female there, when just south of the border, male genital mutilation is very common. Not sure how common male genital mutilation is in Canada, actually. I'm not sure. But whenever you're talking about the wrongs of either genital mutilation, it's not that you can't just talk about one of them, but it becomes conspicuous if you never talk about one of the genders that it happens to. Because male genital mutilation may be less severe than female genital mutilation, the way they're usually done, but male genital mutilation is much more common in wealthier areas of the world. Whereas female genital mutilation is almost unheard of in the West, male genital mutilation is very common in some Western nations, and more common than female in others. I think I've got the gist of this. Bureaucracy has killed BLM. I will link this in case anyone wants to look into it further, but we're sticking mostly with honk today, so I think I'll move back into honk, if this is honk. Actually, this is not honk, but we'll do this quickly first. Now, I saw this meme, and it's a deep-fried meme. It's probably full of shit, but I just wonder if you guys can corroborate any of this. I'll read it out. Don't know if it's all true, but frankly, having read it, I suspect it's mostly true. So, 9 facts about slavery they don't want you to know. The first legal slave owner in American history was a black tobacco farmer named Anthony Johnson. Don't know if that's true. North Carolina's largest slaveholder in 1860 was a black plantation owner named William Ellison. Must have been very large. American Indians owned thousands of black slaves, apparently. In 1830, there were 3,775 free black people who owned 12,740 black slaves, apparently. Many black slaves were allowed to hold jobs, own businesses, and own real estate. I think that one is true, but it depended on where. Brutal black-on-black slavery was common in Africa for thousands of years, and as far as I know, still is. Most slaves brought to America from Africa were purchased from black slave owners. As far as I know, that's true. I thought it was nearly all of them. Slavery was common for thousands of years. White people ended legal chattel slavery. I think maybe better to say European, but either way, similar idea. And then Justin congratulating Liz. Well, I mean, we can't really disagree with him saying that, but he's put together a bunch of virtue signals to distract from the real matter, possibly. Let's skip to the next thing. So more live footage. This one is hosted by this guy behind me here, who appears to be a druid, by his beard. I think I will not watch this because we already watched some live footage earlier, and there's still loads of it that we haven't watched, and this is from the same town as well. But I tell you what, I will go ahead and drop both the live footage videos for you here, and if you would like to, you could have a look through them. And if you want to do it during the show, you could do that too, and let me know if you find anything interesting. There you go. May come back to this if we run out of other things to do. What's this? So this struck me as one of those like what's his name? Sam Hyde. This struck me as a Sam Hyde thing. But I'll read it for you anyway. So, from James Melville on Twitter, the Freedom Trucker Convoy protesters are making free pizzas for anyone in Ottawa. This is probably not being reported by the media or indeed mentioned by Justin Trudeau. This has the character of a like, here's a reference to some other funny thing. We're going to pretend it's about this thing, like Sam Hyde. Just because of the construction of the tweet, and maybe I'm missing a reference here. You guys let me know, but it may just be straight up genuine. That's not impossible. It seems a bit too specific though. Deng says free burgers, hot dogs, coffee, and kebabs. Nice, good. Again, like, they do themselves a huge service by being courteous to those around them. Except, as I mentioned, the honking. At least during the day, that's part of the protest. That's the thing that they're allowed to be uncivil about. But the rest of it, they do themselves a great service by being civil and good people. Shadow, who was that? Because I saw screenshots, but I don't know who the VTuber in question was. All right, next thing. What's this? Is this more footage? Oh, yeah. Finland's apparently got one too. Everyone's getting convoys these days. If it turns out that the culture war is broken by just every civilized nation getting a fucking working class trucker convoy together and saying enough, fine. That's fine by me. That's good, in fact. Yes, fantastic. So Finland's doing it next, and this is actually, was Finland one of the ones that was mentioned as like earlier? Yeah, apparently Finland has removed all COVID restrictions. I wonder if that could be related. 31st January this was, and this was 4th Feb. So maybe it was planned for afterwards, but if they just removed all restrictions, then why is this necessary at this point? Not that I'm complaining. There's plenty of other things to be concerned about. Perhaps that's what they're doing here. But let's have a quick look at the footage, shall we? Nice. Good job with the audio, guys. Alright, we're not watching the entire show. Let's see what's here. Alright, we didn't need the fart sound effects. I'll tell you what I might do. I might just do this. Yeah, a nice little mute button down there. That'll help. Alright. So, there's little information here. Lots of people. You know what I might do? See if I can just do Finland convoy. See if that brings anything up. Yeah, let's see what Breitbart is saying. Freedom goes global, says Breitbart. Finland anti-lockdown convoy hits Helsinki. This is 5th Feb. It's actually yesterday. Canada's Freedom Convoy movement has officially gone global after vehicles streamed to the centre of Finland's capital. Helsinki saw dozens of motor vehicles clog its streets on Friday evening, sparked by the nation's lockdown rules, as well as the rising cost of fuel in the country. Police initially tried to stifle the protest before it occurred, implementing a ban on heavy goods vehicles, a class which includes a wide variety of trucks without a permit from city centre. However, according to a report from Finnish public broadcaster Yle Uutiset, this did not stop the protests from going ahead, with dozens of vehicles, including motorhomes, cars, vans, and at least one mobile sauna, you can tell it's Finland, streaming into the city centre for a demonstration. Nice. Daka says that was Finland's birthday present to me. Fantastic. Good to hear about it. Have you guys heard much about the Finland thing? Because I haven't seen anyone else talking about it. Here's some footage, or maybe drone footage from above. It looks like it's at least somewhat sped up. Yeah. It's even snowier than Canada's, actually. But no less badass. Still quite a lot of people. And you know, again, I'm not seeing any Nazi flags. They're all just Finnish flags. Isn't that weird, chat? No. Are you seeing any hateful symbology there, chat? Or is it just... we want freedom and we like our country? Because that's what I'm seeing currently. Ooh, what's that? That may be like an old Finnish flag, the red flag with the gold lion. Anyone recognize that? I don't recognize that one. Ebbs offended. They're shouting something in some foreignese, some snow ape garbage. Videos of the event shared on social media also showed anti-lockdown protesters demonstrating on foot, waving Finnish flags and cheering while the sound of drums can be heard in the background. More footage follows. I tell you what, I'll link this because there's plenty of footage here you guys might like. Here you go. It wasn't hard to find this. That's their coat of arms. Thank you, Enigmatic. I was essentially right in saying it's an older Finnish flag. While initially warning that disruptions for the event could last up to 6 days, Yle Uutiset has claimed that the Finnish police broke up the protest, detaining around 55 people and towing a number of vehicles. I hope not and doubt it. The broadcaster also reports, however, that the Freedom Convoy succeeded in blocking the Mannerheimintie, an important street that leads into Finland's capital, for a number of hours. It would be a shame if it was already over. Apparently, Dutch truckers are joining Canadians in convoying against lockdown measures. Nice. Looks like it's happening in lots of places. Ottawa expects a surge of trucker convoy protesters this weekend, which I guess is about now. That's good. Finland's protest on Friday was not the first time the Freedom Convoy hit Europe. Truckers, as well as a wide variety of other motorists, gathered in the Netherlands last week to protest their nation's COVID lockdown rules. Dozens of vehicles formed a convoy in the Dutch city of Leeuwarden, with motorists calling for an end to lockdown measures aimed at curbing the Chinese coronavirus. Breitbart still making sure to call it Chinese. Quote, I'm going to ride as long as I can because I'm tired of all the measures, one anti-lockdown protester is reported to have said. Quote, freedom, that's what it's all about. Freedom. Good man. That's good, classic. Wow, thanks, Wick. I really appreciate that. At least I don't suck at knowing when not to post lolly porn in Spiral. Next story. Truckers in Ottawa are settling in compared to the ridiculous tents and farms the anarchists in Chaz had. This is another one, like the pizza one, where this kind of looked like it might be an image from something else that they've just drawn in here for the meme. But I suppose someone in chat might be able to tell me, are they building makeshift accommodation? That's apparently a soup kitchen they're building. Very, very Chad. Good for them. Calling makeshift is an insult? Fair. I mean, I think it can be makeshift and still good. Well, somewhat. Either way, it's a short-term build. Let's call it that. But yeah, it's looking quite a lot better than Chaz. I mean, there was that footage from Chaz. I don't remember if you watched this on stream or between streams, but where one guy was just sort of dancing around in the dirt, and one guy was hammering cardboard on top of the dirt. It looked like they were both tripping fucking balls, but there was absolutely no rhyme or reason to what was going on there, because the people that run it essentially have no understanding of humans, including themselves. They completely idealize it. Actually, I was thinking recently that so I'll talk about this for a second. The one-dimensional political compass was the standard for measuring politics for years. The left, right, communism, fascism dichotomy has a lot of problems, misses out a lot of things, a lot of nuance not included. It's bad. We need to do better because it's causing issues with misunderstanding who is on which side, etc., etc. The two-dimensional compass that was introduced, as far as I know, by politicalcompass.org is much better. It's still not as good as it could be, but it's much better than one dimension. That's very good. However, I think this culture war, to understand properly, actually requires just three. I think you can do it with three, and I think the third one, if you had to figure out what it would be, at least relevant to today and maybe long term as well, is let's do all three. So the way I would write it is moral regulation at the top, moral freedom at the bottom, economic regulation on the left, economic freedom on the right, and then a third dimension. So imagine it as a cube now, with pure humanism and then post-humanism as the other dimension. I'm not certain that that's the best one overall, but I think that's the best one for this culture war. What you have with commies and socialists and such, where I talked about this before, the left tends to try to create platforms of theory to take them away from the savagery of natural reality, which can be very useful, but can also be very wrong, because most ideas are bad, and there certainly are. Communism and socialism are sort of the gutter into which all the bad political ideas flow, it seems. Either way, they would be high on the post-humanism scale, or sort of anti-nature, if you like, scale, where they try to change what it means to be human, try to create those platforms of theory, try to move away from the savagery of the nature of our past. Whereas most conservative types would be the opposite end of the scale. They would be very much pure humanist, where they are concerned with how humans have always been, traditions, and as I said before, evolution. I think it's very much an aid to that perspective. And I find myself roughly in the middle of that spectrum. And actually, to be fair, roughly in the middle of all of them. Yeah, that's me after all. But I think that fits a lot of things here, because the neolibs who are running the show, like the elite, our actual enemy, are right near the top of that post-humanist scale as well. The Great Reset, for example, very post-humanist idea, very anti-nature idea, very we can rebuild what it means to be human. But of course, other than that, they are morally regulatory because it's useful to them, and economically roughly middle, little over to the regulatory side. So I think that helps to explain it. And I think where we are is obviously there's a wide range of people in the community, but probably the aggregate of all our positions would be roughly a little below the line of moral regulation at the top and moral freedom at the bottom, a little to the right of the line of economic regulation on the left and economic freedom on the right, which is roughly the same as the current compass. But then for the pure humanism versus post-humanism, we're nearer the pure humanism side because that's what's appropriate for the times. In other times, maybe we would vary a little bit more, but we never go particularly close to either extreme. What you would find, I think, one of the best examples to make a distinction on this third dimension I'm talking about is where it's the same on otherwise, is where do you put the, what they call the anarcho-primitivists compared to the anarcho-communist? On the 2D political compass, they're in the same place. On this 3D one, they are on the opposite sides of the third dimension. The commies would be on the post-humanist, and the anarcho-primitivists would be on the pure humanist, both extreme on either one, but otherwise, in the other two dimensions, in the same place. So that's the proof that there is something to this. Whether it should be the next dimension we add is a question that we can ask, but I think it really helps to explain this culture war. I think the people currently in power, currently exerting power, who are post-humanist are there for convenience, just like they're there for convenience for moral regulation and for economic regulation. But then they do everything for convenience because they're fucking psychos. Thank you, Daka. Daka says, sorry to derail, I'm at work and just saw a Down syndrome awareness bumper sticker and it took almost all my composure to not lose my shit laughing. It read, quote, I heart my homies with extra chromies. Yeah, I don't think that's helping to humanize these people. Well, to be fair, being part of the community like Cabal, I can't help but love my homies with extra chromies. So, let's see what else. Let's go back to this. And just quickly to add on to the previous thing, 8 values is 8 dimensions. I think so, yeah. I don't think you need that many. I think a lot of them may be extraneous or covers other things well enough. And some of them may just be, let's add another one. It's not essential ones. I think the 3 I've just listed are, at least at the moment, the 3 most essential. Now, you could say nationalism and globalism, but then that's what I mean. I think that's contained within. I think that has a very strong correlation with the pure humanism and post-humanism spectrum. If anyone can find an example where the 2 differ significantly, let me know. But I think that contains a lot of them. Anyway, let's go to the next thing. We're nearly at the end of the news stories I have. This probably should be in the memes section. I'll put it there for now. Is there a reason I put it in here? Don't think so. Well, I'll get back to that if we do memes. Oh, yeah. There was this. So, Snopes is debunking the Freedom Convoy's size. Quote, or, well, they say, did 50,000 Freedom Convoy trucks set Guinness World Record? The vast majority of truck drivers in Canada are vaccinated, they say, and according to official statistics, which we don't really know if we can trust ever. TeleG already did that a few streams ago. So they say it's false. In January 2022, a number of trucks participated in a convoy across Canada in protest of the country's requirement for cross-border truckers to be vaccinated for COVID-19. As videos of the so-called Freedom Convoy spread on social media, so did a number of claims concerning just how many trucks were participating in the event. These claims range from a few hundred to more than 50,000. Some even claimed that the Freedom Convoy had set a Guinness World Record for the world's largest truck convoy. Now, this is one of those things where Snopes is... on the surface, it looks like it's fine, and largely what they're saying is okay, but the problem, the real problem is this here. Because the text of the article, if read without, just being maximally credulous, actually says quite a lot of good things for the truckers. However, it's this that people will read. I think most of the reason that these fact-checking sites popped up and were used so much by our opponents, it's because they rely on people just reading the headline. In this case, it's the headline and the rating. Once they read the rating, they're done. If they read false, they'll think, it's very small. Actually, if we take 50,000 to be maybe even true, but maybe a huge exaggeration, either way, the number doesn't need to be anywhere near that high to be very significant. Let's read a little bit more, shall we? And also, like the Guinness World Records thing, Guinness is just a private company that does records. You shouldn't treat them as any more authoritative than any other company that tends to do that, except that they have more of a reputation to protect. That's about it. So this is the bit I'm really interested in, right? So the largest parade of trucks consisted of 480 trucks and is achieved by some sand people. 480. So it wouldn't take 50,000 to beat it. It would only take 480. Do we reckon that there were 480 or more in Canada? Yes, I think there bloody were. There must have been at least some point where there were more than that. Maybe Guinness weren't fucking there, but maybe there still are places like that. Maybe they're all just backed up in a big line of four. There's footage of it as well. So I think it's pretty likely that they did smash the fucking record. It doesn't have to have been 50,000. But it may have been 50,000. This is what I mean. Like, you read this, it looks like it's all doom and gloom. But then you just read 1 or 2 lines from this without maximum credulousness, and suddenly, it's actually pretty good. I'll be right back, chat. Just 30 seconds. Yes. Kittler, it did say largest parade convoy. The largest parade of trucks. I guess the convoy would be counted as a parade of trucks. But there may be some sort of weird category thing there. Either way, fuck Guinness, like, it doesn't matter. But even though it doesn't matter, they probably have smashed the record. They probably took it by many times, maybe even order of magnitude at some point. Some points that maybe even can be confirmed with footage. So, yeah, Snopes, well done, guys. Fucking debunked. No official count, doesn't matter. There's footage of at least dozens of them lined up. There must be footage. And maybe even they're still there of hundreds lined up. And they say likely hundreds. So ignore the not thousands bit, that's irrelevant. They say likely hundreds. That's at least a 1 in 2 chance that it's over 500, which means it smashed the fucking world record. And of course, this is this site. This is Snopes saying not thousands. It very well might be thousands. I've seen plenty of reasons to think it's thousands. So yeah, it might not be 50,000, but it's probably at least 1,000. You guys in chat might be able to, especially if you live there, might be able to tell me your rough estimate on how many you reckon there are active as part of the convoy across the country. It's probably thousands. Probably not 50,000, but probably thousands. See what we've got next. This is what we started with. And that's it. That's all our news stories. Well then, we've reached the end of our selection of news. Although that's not true. This is just the stuff I had open. However, because I've reached a break point, what I'll do now is I'll do another content vote. If you vote news again, I do have some more things we can go over. There's some things in repository. People have pinged me in news with some stuff. If you vote news again, we can find more news. But if you vote memes, I have 58 Freedom Convoy memes. So, and that's just from well, I've missed out a few days from Meme Shrine. I haven't been looking at it for the past couple of days. So there you go. There's the vote. What would you like to do, Sham? News or memes will both work as sections. Given indications from many times that I've done it, I'm only going to do gaming at the ends of shows, and I might not even do anything but news or memes, maybe some exceptions, when there's a big story like today, when there's something important that we're covering. When it's a general, like, casual, we don't really have anything to talk about stream, then I'll pick random stuff. We do a VTuber or a Tomboy section in the middle. But usually I want to save them to the end, gaming included. So for now, I recommend you just vote on the things that have something to do with the news story. Classic says, have you talked about the lefty who drove a truck through the freedom protesters yesterday? I haven't seen that. Didn't hear about that. Right. You are voting for memes. Then we should do that. All right. Memes. This is going to be a long slog through the memes, chat, but it's going to be fun. Yes, I love this one. This is such a great one to start with. I'll fire 1,000 truckers before I let Pfizer take a quarterly loss. Leftoids, when the actual working class starts to getting a little bit too disobedient. That's what it was going to take, frankly, with this culture war. It was going to take the working class just standing up and saying enough, which was going to happen eventually. The whole thing about, like, where it's not happening fast enough. We tried your way with culture and democracy, but it hasn't worked yet, so we need fascism. You fucking crybabies. It appears to be working quicker every day. Even if this totally fails, it will only be a matter of time before something else happens. And maybe it doesn't work in the end, but your method will be even less successful. I think, honestly, fascism is exactly what our enemy wants. They would love to see the two sides fighting in the streets, because the end game of all this bullshit that they're pulling is probably war. War would allow them to completely consolidate their power. It's not far off Palpatine's route, actually. And that used war. Even in a relatively healthy republic, relatively, as it was before that war. It certainly was a good method for him to consolidate a bunch of power to himself. Of course, a war could be a time for consolidation of the power of the people. It could be a time where we reject the useless old guard. Either way could happen. It would depend a lot on short-term factors. A lot could change in a war. It depends how real the war is. If it's a big fake proxy war or something that is presented as the next world war or something really major or drastic, then that could be 1984 territory. If it's a genuine war, then it's less likely to work out for the elites. Thank you, Classic. Let me go ahead and put that in my news section. I think I'll close these for now. We don't do any more, but I'll open that. And I'll come back to it if we do more news. Thank you. But yeah, I like this. Monsters, Inc. reference. Good movie, by the way. And yeah, it really do be like this. They would, like, it's the effect of what they're doing is protecting Pfizer's bottom line. Of course, what they think they're doing, honestly, I don't think that they're even trying to oppose the truckers and support vaccine mandates and whatnot because they think it's a good idea in practice. I think they're just doing it, and this is something our opponent seems to rely on a lot. They're just doing it because it's the popular, trendy position to have. It's a position that is safe to hold in society. And honestly, this is a bit of a black pill, but I think it's true that the vast majority of people in society, not even just the sub-100 IQers, but up above that as well, to some extent, they pick their beliefs not based on what appears to be true, but based on what is socially safe to believe. What they can get away with believing socially, what they can still fit into various groups whilst believing. And because of that, part of the reason that I recommend that the best way to make a change on an individual level is to be an exemplar, to be effortlessly sort of dominant and effective in society, to make it look like it's easy to have these beliefs and live a satisfying life. And these beliefs are easier to live with than the bullshit they believe. Part of the reason is because that gets to what actually most people care about, which is very low level or very natural, non-logical stuff. If you come at someone with all the best arguments in the world, unless they're very intelligent and very reasonable, which is very rare, they are either not going to pay attention or they're going to just shout random slurs at you. But if you are able to effortlessly demonstrate that you are just better than them visually, not even saying it, not expressing it, not by reasoning to it, just by embodying it with putting in much less effort and showing that they are struggling to live life with the beliefs they have, that I think is the effective way. Be positive as well. If you like being positive, being kind and generous and uplifting shows other people that you have time and energy to spare. That's how easy it is to live with your beliefs. Now, it's actually not easy to live with these beliefs, but that's why we have to put in the extra effort, that we have to be much better than them. And we have the advantage because they are complacent. That's what we have to do. That's the road before us is clear. We have only to walk it. The Habbo pools closed references are very apt for Ottawa right now. Do appreciate them. Nations closed due to blockades. Yeah. All right, next meme. Very good. Justin Trudeau's position on leadership, fetal. It really do be like this. He just ran away almost immediately. There's no amount of, I felt in danger from, maybe you did, but that indicates you have lost control. It's not that he couldn't recover from this if the truckers just disappeared today and he went back to the capital. He wouldn't, I don't think, lose much politically, but the longer he stays away, and the more people start to realize, okay, the truckers aren't going to budge, maybe we can pressure Trudeau to budge. The more pressure will build on him gradually. The longer he's away, the less he'll be able to do as in the nation. The pressure right now will just keep building on Trudeau. So just stick it out. He must eventually blink, or the politicians who have the power to get rid of him must eventually blink. As long as the truckers don't, they will win. Yeah. Indeed, classic. I think, to be fair, initially he said he was leaving due to COVID, and then he left with somewhere else in the city. And then after the convoy started properly, he left the city entirely. I may be wrong on that. That was from what I remembered at the time. Either way, he left very early on. Okay. Next thing. Oh, this was a weird series of memes that showed up in Cabal, and we can just run through these. It's going to be very fucking difficult to explain what's going on here. So what we appear to have here is, on the left, I think it's supposed to be a Russian soldier. On the right, it's a like classic social justice Wojak-ish figure of like a Zoomer leftist female, but in soldier equipment, as if to imply that the US Army is made up of like awful woke women, and the Russian Army is made up of normal people. But in this case, they're not happy, because the woke women making up the US Army are, well, in this meme, they're at the advantage. So the Russian says, "No, you can't just vaporize my entire armored division. We had such a manly recruitment ad." And the wokeoid US soldier says, "Oh my god, integrated fire support, go off queen, and various sound effects. J-Dimes are such a Gemini, etc." Very, very cringe bullshit. So this isn't funny on its own, I don't think. It doesn't really make any sense either. But it's the series that emerged from this that I found so ridiculous. Maybe funny. We'll see. So here's the next one. That original meme was all just in the head of a normal male American soldier who says, "No, how did you undo 20 years of occupation in 2 weeks? You don't even have drones." The Afghani soldier says, "Allah willed it." And then the next one is that meme, including the previous meme, are all in the thoughts of the Russian soldier again, who says, "No, but you lost against the Taliban. How could you beat the mighty Russian army and air defenses?" And then the woke female soldier again says, "Looks like it was a no-bones day, sweetie." No idea what that means. It should say sweaty, though, right? JK, maybe you should try having a 5th-gen Air Force XOXO with the various colors of cancer here on the airplane. And then there's another stage of the meme where that meme, including all the previous stages, is inside the thought bubble of the American jet fighter, who says, "No, you're just an ugly truck and you can't shoot down my 55th gen hyper shitbird from 400 kilometers away. I wanted to have an epic dogfight. No." And then the ugly truck says, "Beep, beep, boop, boop." I assume it's Russian, as it's about to shoot down the jet fighter. And that's where the series ends. Just kidding, there's loads more. Here's the next one. This is the Russian soldier thinking about that previous meme, saying, "No, you can't just use ground-based weapons to take out our advanced air defense network." And then the ground-based weapon says intense anti-radiation noises as it takes out their advanced air defense network. And then the next phase is the, I assume, American soldier thinking about that, saying, "No, you can't use microwave ovens to fool our seed missiles, no." And then the microwave is just in a fucking field with the Russian soldier laughing. And then the next stage, and I think this is the final stage, is an appropriate final stage. Whoever's thinking about this fucking series of contravening events is just in a fucking padded cell somewhere. Let's face it. It's pretty obvious. See how good the resolution is, and see how close we can get to the bottom. Not very close. What a beautiful series. I think it's probably 4chan we have to thank for this. So no names to credit, but credit to them anyway. It's pretty good. All right, next thing. Yeah. So there's this, right? So this looks a bit too well put together. Be careful, there's some possibly glowy activity, but it might not be. Let's not be ossified by our fear of the glowies. After all, they show up at these things, but they don't seem to really do anything. January 6th is an exception. So be careful with that, but it's not like if they're there, you're instantly going to prison. So European Freedom Convoy, with the Canadian flag there, in, I guess, reference to the Canadian one. It says, this is for those listening, it's a poster. It seems like a advert of some sort. They say this is not about vax or anti-vax, it's about people's right to choose. This is not about politics, it's about the freedom of the human race. 14th February 2022, which is about 8 days from now. All convoys will arrive in Brussels to demand an end to tyrannical rules. That'd be pretty cool, actually. I love how there's no line coming from the UK, partly because there's an ocean, although there's the channel we could use, but also partly because we're not in the fucking EU. We don't need to go to Brussels to whine about the lack of freedom, although I'm sure people will. If this happens on a large scale, I'm sure there'll be Brits there as well. They say, the advert says, this is a peaceful action intended to bring about specific results. And these are the following. The permanent end to martial law, never again. Right to travel freely without interference. Right to choose your own health decisions. That's a right you're already fucking owed. Right of free speech never to be infringed. Again. Right to conduct business freely, right to individual sovereignty, and right to maintain our human dignity, national pride, spiritual beliefs, and cultural traditions. So it's a fairly conservative movement, this, so I'm not sure it'll gain the same impetus, but those are all good things, especially for right now. They may not all be absolutes, but they're all pretty good, pretty close to absolute. So with care that it's not some sort of trap, which is unlikely, I would tentatively recommend that people look into this. If this happens, it could be pretty good. Could be something that really helps Europe. So there's links here. I'll post this in the chat if you guys want to see it yourself. If you guys want to copy down the link, but it's there's a Telegram link. If any of you have Telegram and want to go there and check it out yourselves, maybe give me your thoughts live. I'd appreciate that. It's up to you, of course. Let's see what we've got next. Yes, this is pretty good. Trudeau spinning. I think putting Trudeau's face on the cowering girl from the Terminator meme is very appropriate. The narrative that Trudeau is running away and hiding is powerful and very believable given the circumstances. So yeah, this is pretty good. I can't see this going well for Trudeau. Either he capitulates and loses a lot of respect from his supporters, or he doesn't and it gets much worse. And frankly, if he was going to, he probably would have already done so. At this point, it's pride. It looks like to me it's probably mostly pride keeping him in the situation where it's just going to keep getting worse. Right, next meme. Yeah, I think we mentioned something like this earlier. So, should I try and do a Gru accent? I don't think I could do a Gru accent. Either way, the truckers have blocked the streets, so we will send in a fleet of tow trucks. Now they have more trucks. Wait, now they have more trucks. And this is essentially what happened, at least some of the time. I don't know if the tow trucks went there on the behest of the government, because if they were going to go there, if they were going to stay there, they would have gone there anyway. But either way, there are, according to some of you, now tow trucks among the protest. So that's good. I really, other than a few strategic and tactical things, GoFundMe being the main one, I can't really stop saying good things about the Freedom Convoy. It's pretty close to exactly the right way to do it. That's good, Deng. And Deng, I assume you took that picture yourself. given that you're there. Trudeau in blackface saying, "You're all a bunch of racists." Thanks to Deng for this picture. All right, next up. Yeah, here's a little bit of hypocrisy. This is already obvious. There was already enough reason to know this is hypocrisy in the first place, even with Jan 6th, which was minor by comparison to some of the shit they were pulling in 2020. In 2020, with the burning fucking cities, many deaths and lootings, indiscriminately, for no reason either, the lefties were saying, "Get over it, chuds, it's a fiery but mostly peaceful protest." 2022, however, honk. "No, this is literally terrorism, my ears hurt." Honk harder, chat. I think I have that one, Kittler, but it is very good. And I do like the, actually, with this one, I'll open it now, so I'm talking about it. I really like with this one, I'm not sure it's intentional, but I really like the ice versus fire. It's very similar to something from the movie V for Vendetta, where, moderate spoilers ahead, the main character was essentially born in fire, and then Evie, who's sort of his apprentice, is born in rain, or at least that's the moment where they, I suppose, where they reach a sort of defining moment of self-realization, or whatever you want to call it. It's similar here, and it's not deliberate. It doesn't necessarily say much. You can maybe argue that ice is building up and fire is tearing down, but both sides do a bit of both, and sometimes it's for the best, sometimes it's not. So I don't know if there's really much behind the symbolism, but I do kind of like the opportunity the symbolism gives us for maybe looking into how it could be connected. It makes for a nice visual at the very least. But yeah, your boos mean nothing. We've seen what makes you cheer. Good point. Nothing much to this one. Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, someone else has noticed. All right. Where was I? Yeah. Fascism is when you drive big trucks. The bigger the truck, the more fascist it is. Benito Mussolini. And he would know as well. Thank you for this direct quote from Mussolini himself. Yes, this is in fact the formula. In fact, it's directly proportional, mathematically, for sure. In fact, there's mathematical proofs for it. Anyway, next thing. Socialists condemn workers of the world for uniting. A joke that has been used many times and is actually accurate and poignant. It is, once again, I have to fucking rag on the socialists. I know you guys hate when I rag on the socialists. But they don't want the workers of the world to unite. They want the workers of the world to like them, their ideology. They want the workers of the world to fight for them, to be their foot soldiers. They want the workers of the world to unite. Essentially meaning they want the workers of the night to be theirs, to join them. They unite in their ideas, in their cult. They want the masses because they know that's what the power is. And because they're champagne socialists and they idolize being the heroes of the downtrodden. So yeah, the workers of the world unite thing is just an expression. They don't actually want the workers of the world to unite, unless they are uniting for the benefit of socialists and socialism. Which, to be fair, is what everyone else wants, but at least, almost everyone else, but at least everyone else doesn't make their whole thing about, I just want them to unite. No, I don't really mind around what they unite. To be fair, the socialists, they wouldn't need to make it explicit. It's somewhat obvious. So, whatever. But this still works. This is still a good joke. Because yes, they are uniting for something they genuinely care about. It is the workers. I mean, it's mostly workers being affected by this particular policy, though the broader issue affects everyone. Broader issue of government fucking lockdowns. Next thing. Right, so this is a retard. Let's see what he says. I've set up nicely for him to say his piece, haven't I? A man called Fidel Guevara, and yes, you can read into that name, says, the contrast between this protest and all the other ones I've been to is so telling. These people are out there having fun and being entitled as fucking hell, taking up space and being as loud as they can. When I go to a real protest, the mood is like dour and people actually hurting and looking to heal. It's maddening, he says. Now, there might be something to that, actually, because if people are happy at a protest, then, well, there's two broad reasons for that. One is they're not really taking it seriously, and two is they feel like they're winning. Now, I expect the second one is true here, because Trudeau's fucking vanished. But being dour at a protest can mean one of two things. One is they are nihilists and don't believe that anything could ever be better. They're just out there to have a fucking fight. Two is, and then maybe three actually, two is that they, well, let's go with the honest one first. Two is they're genuinely solemn about the issue. And three is they're not actually there for the protest, they're there to loot. So dour is sort of the closest that you can approximate. Maybe they're just trying to avoid your gaze so they can take the fucking TV behind you. But either way could be honest or dishonest. So yeah, there's nothing to this yet. He goes on to say, these fucking crybabies out there pretending like they're oppressed for being lucky enough to live in a country that provides free vaccinations when so many parts of the world are desperate for it. The wrong verb. It's not provides, it's mandates. You think paying for them was the problem? No, if the government wasn't benefiting from, oh, and by the way, they're not free. Your tax money pays for them. So they're not free. A socialist might see them as free. That's because the socialist is a retard. But if the government was not benefiting from everyone being vaccinated, they would probably make you pay for them. But they're benefiting from everyone being vaccinated, and not because the virus is dangerous, and not because the vaccines are particularly effective. They are a little effective, but not enough to justify this. And the testing has been way fucking dodgy as well. There's no reason to believe that they're safe. And there's plenty of reasons to believe that they are at least dangerous to some people. There have been significant side effects, and they've been given to far too many people before being properly tested. There may still be long-term side effects we don't know about. Either way, it's as if the problem is that they're free. As if the problem is that, oh, well, if they were free, then I would be okay with it. Well, no. The problem is that they're being forced. Like, being beaten with a bludgeon for being a dissenter is free. Like, it doesn't cost you anything monetarily. That isn't the problem. It's like, also the truncheon is black. That's not the problem either. If it was white or red, it would still be just as much of a problem. It's an irrelevant factor. The fact that it's free. It's the fact that it's mandatory that's the problem, and you're not even mentioning that. If it was just free and available and you could have it if you wanted it, then no one would be fucking complaining. The convoy would not be happening. The difference is it's fucking mandatory. Which, of course, he probably, if he was being honest, he would admit, but he's not the kind to be honest. He then says, Western individualism is a disease. There is no sense of community. People only think for themselves. What, you mean the thousands of them that are thinking for themselves? Now, what you mean by there is no sense of community is people don't gather around me to give up their individual sovereignty to do what I want them to do. Boo fucking who? Go and live in one of those awful countries where they're not free then. Well, I mean, you pick one. Individualism as the dominant ideology, the over-collectivism, or paid vaccinations. Make a choice. Yes, Capsasha, I had somehow figured out that he was a communist. But thank you for clarifying. Yes, this is a particularly retarded man, which is why he's in the meme category and not the news category. Next thing. This is good for those listening at home. This is what's a good name for this guy? George Castro. This is George Floyd face melded with Justin Castro, and it doesn't look good, frankly. He doesn't look good. And the text has been changed from I can't breathe to I can't lead. which is true. At this point, he's absconded, essentially. Yeah. Yes, classic, exactly. Justin fleed. Very good, Decrona. Duck, I hope we can do better than that. All right, next thing. Yeah, so here is a picture that appears to be two women lying down together, intertwined, holding the quotes from Mao. All right, so light reading, and then the caption is just boys being boys, right? So we got some faggot femboys here. And then the reply is, can the gays stop idolizing regimes that would have killed them for 5 fucking seconds? And the point, I think, has been made. So, yeah, they just can't stop themselves. It's, it proves, though, that the facts of the case are less important than something. And what that something is the sort of nuances of human psychology that I have turned my attention to a lot in the past few years. I can begin to explain it, but I won't go into detail for this. I go into detail on other things quite often. So, yes, is Zane around? I don't know why I've been mentioning Zane in reference to these femboy legs, but Zane is not here currently. So let me briefly talk about a community matter. The Outreach have their own domain, and Zane is part of Outreach. He has the ability to make channels in his domain. He made a femboys channel so that people could post pictures of femboys, because he's into that. And then he made a channel, and I said, as long as it's just one channel for femboys in your domain, fine, I don't mind. Then he made another one. He's got femboys and femboy truth now, because apparently he wants to discuss femboys. Now, I heard initially that some people from Tomboy Truth went over and raided Femboy Truth, which I think is quite funny. He then made a threat that, and apparently they were posting tranny statistics into the Femboy Truth channel, which again is quite funny. And then he threatened, if you keep doing this, I'll go and post woman statistics in the Tomboy Truth channel. Now, I'm not going to go any further with discussing what happened, but Zane and I did have a sort of back and forth. Very friendly, very civil, because I like Zane. I'm hoping, though, he's not here currently, but I'm hoping at some point he and I can have an actual, not debate per se, but a proper fleshed out discussion about femboys and tomboys on the stream. I made quite a few points that I think are worth making in front of more people. And if you're interested in that, we were talking in the Tomboy Truth channel. So I recommend, if you have any interest in this silly topic, you can have a look at my messages in the Tomboy Truth channel, and his too. Capstash, I'm sure that was one of them, yeah. Telly G, there isn't a huge difference. I mean, it depends, like, just effeminate men, I don't think that's what's meant by femboys. I think they have to be cross-dressers too. Zane didn't contradict that idea. Either way, I think we'll talk about that another time. I think I'd like to talk about that with Zane present. Anyway, move on to the next thing. Yeah, so this is interesting. I don't doubt that these quotes are true. Maybe you guys could corroborate. So Abraham Lincoln apparently said, "If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it." And then Robert E. Lee, who led or was a Confederate general, I'm not sure if he led it, but he was a general of some sort, I think, said, "There is a terrible war coming, and these young men who have never seen war cannot wait for it to happen. But I tell you, I wish that I owned every slave in the South, for I would free them all to avoid this war." Really sort of turns the idea, the myths about the American Civil War on its head. I suspect that everything that the mainstream says about it is fucking lies. The idea that the parties flipped, it's probably also lies. What happened is, around the middle of the 20th century, the Democrats realized that it was, well, not the middle, but late 20th century, they realized it was more in their interest to pander to other races to control them than to try to control them by more direct means, which they've been doing before. But other than that, it's all been the same. They've always been the racist party, so it seems. The Republicans never really cared about race. They cared about maintaining the freedoms the nation was founded upon, even if that sometimes meant less comfort for some people who were complacent and unwilling to be part of the libertarian experiment that the US is. It's difficult in the context of the current culture war not to view the Democrats as just generally the bad guys. Maybe that's my bias, bias that I have formed out of being on this side. But let me tell you, right now they are. And maybe that has always been the same. Kittler says Abraham Lincoln only freed the slaves in the Confederacy with the Emancipation Proclamation. I know this because Missouri was in the Union and a slave state. Nice. So yeah, that appears to be the case. And it's not encouraging that the US is teaching them their history in reverse, where the good guys are the bad guys and the bad guys are the good guys. And if this general narrative is true, you really have no leg to stand on saying the Confederate flag is racist. They're essentially just saying that now. There's nothing really to back it up. Next thing. So here's a picture of, I think, Steven Spielberg with one of the dinosaurs from probably one of the Jurassic Park movies. A prop, obviously. And then the caption is, this guy thinks it's cool to kill defenseless animals, then take a selfie. Jerk. I assume that guy knew that he was responding to a screenshot from a movie set. However, the next respondent probably did not. Joyce Carol Oates here says, so barbaric that this should still be allowed. No conservation laws in effect wherever this is. I just wonder if someone has literally been taken in by a picture of a man sitting next to a dinosaur. Oh, she thinks it's some sort of mutant rhino. There are people stupid enough to believe this. 100%. And she's probably one of them. Daka says, to quote Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson, I'll have those, insert gamer word here, voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Yes, that appears to be what they are doing. Regardless whether that quote is real, that appears to be what they're doing. All right, next thing. By the way, we're maybe about a third of the way through the memes. We have a lot of memes here, chat. This might take us the entire rest of the show if I find a lot to comment on. But as I said before, it might be a shorter stream today. I'm not going to necessarily respect the timer in the top left because I am tired coming into it because my sleep pattern's still fucked up. It's getting better though. So, this was, what was this? What was this? Oh yeah. Yeah, this is somewhat encouraging actually. So this, cringe lord on, I think, Reddit says, I have unsubscribed from so many Canadian YouTubers since they all came out in support of the protest. Remember, you never know who is a Nazi. One of my $50 a month subscriptions on Patreon came out as an anti-vaxxer during all of this, and I feel cheated out of close to $1,000 given to her. So, yes, why were you subscribing to her, my friend? So, first, who is she? Because she sounds pretty interesting. And secondly, like, jumping straight from I like them to, oh, they support a protest, therefore they must be a Nazi. That's a deranged leap. Unless the protest is explicitly and completely and obviously Nazis, which it's all, like, none of those things are true. It's just that the people that rule you say it's full of Nazis, and oh, look, they're the ones who would benefit most from that lie. But yeah, I like the fact that this guy's been cheated out, or not cheated out of, that this guy has given up to someone he later decided he didn't like a lot of money. And I'm glad that, unlike with false rape accusations, he can't do anything about it. Good. Just a nice story about someone we don't like suffering. And frankly, he's given us all the reasons to give him no sympathy in his message here, whining about it. Something to feel nice about, chat. Someone else is feeling misfortune. But also, who is she? Next meme. Canadian Freedom Convoy, part of the War of Clownvax World. Not a bad name for it, actually. Although the vaccination stuff is not one of the main. Well, no, it is one of the main, but it's not all encompassing for the culture war. Clown World is one that refers to, yes, the whole thing, but vax is, I expect to be, yes, a big part of the culture war, but not all encompassing. It only started like 2019, 2020, and the culture war's been going on since 2013, roughly. But hey, Clownvax World works for right now, for sure. So date 30th January 2021, location Ottawa, result ongoing conflict. Belligerents, Canada versus Confederation of the Russian Reich, which is tongue-in-cheek. Commanders and leaders, Justin Trudeau, MIA, and Reddit versus Hiroyuki. Don't actually know what that is, but it's got the 4chan clover symbol. Maybe it's a different name for 4chan. And Adolf Flamin' Wheels Putin. Great name. Strength, 1 YouTube live stream versus 145 CFCG threads. Not sure what that board is, actually. And 50,000 honking trucks. We don't know if it's 50,000. It might very well not be. Might even be more. We don't know. Casualties and losses. Trudeau evacuated to inner woods cuck shed over 5,000 Redditors' eardrums versus 300,000 gallons of diesel. So, yeah. That's the state of it currently. See what we've got next. Ah, yes. The Globe and Mail, which appears to be a Canadian quote-unquote journalistic outlet, says violence by a few mars peaceful protest by many. Rioters smashed store windows and torched police cars with glee in ... actually, that's a long-ass time ago. That's from 2010. That's very old. Meanwhile, 2022, calling the Ottawa protests peaceful downplays non-violent dangers, critics say. I'm not even going to bother responding. They're just shoveling shit here. What's this? I feel like you sort of quote mining Lincoln's point was that he would do anything to save the Union. All right, on the basis that you're saying that I've accidentally misquoted him. This is apparently the full quote. He says, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. And if I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. Okay, well, then the original quote was definitely mined, because yes, this is totally different with the full context. And if I could save it by freeing some and leaving others alone, I would also do that. I have here stated my purpose according to my view of official duty, and I intend no modification of my oft expressed personal wish that all men everywhere could be free. Yeah, fair enough. Okay. If this is a genuine quote, then forget that last one. Still, a lot of the other analysis I made is probably still accurate, and especially it is now. All right, where was I? Here. There we go. Oh, God, I have to read out this fucking cringe from these leftoids. So, this Redditor says, I can't stop crying. My wife and I have been suffering extreme anxiety and sleep deprivation as there's a giant truck blowing its horn right beside our apartment. My wife says she's going to go sleep at a male friend's house. That was the cuck from earlier. Someone else says, I hate it here. Someone else says, I feel like we're under attack. Someone else says, hit my breaking point. It never lets up. I'm at Queen and Bronson. The T finally burst. There's maybe something missing there. Still hours to go. Someone else says something... They say, my street has had non-stop honking for the last 6 hours. We need to stop calling this a protest. This is terrorism. Myself and many I know are stressed out, and some are just shivering from literally being sieged by honking. Now, that's interesting. Why are the other people, the people who support the protest, not shivering? That's just a worthwhile question, I think. Maybe it sounds silly on the surface, but the point being made by that is it's not the noise. It's something else, and the noise is probably a factor. I would imagine that the people doing the protest believe that the cause for the noise is enough that they are able to ignore how annoying it is. And maybe the how much they're annoying bad people helps as well. So they're not finding it annoying at all because they believe in it. The rest of you are only finding it annoying because you don't believe in it. which means that ultimately, though the noise is definitely a significant factor, it's about politics still. So there's two ways for you to solve this. Either one, you can leave the city or something, or two, get on board. Learn to love the honking, which I wouldn't necessarily do if the situation was reversed. But still, it's not just the noise. It's also your attitude towards it. So this is at least somewhat political, your reaction here. Also, there'll be others who are on your side who aren't shivering with this. So it is also about your own constitution, your own ability to deal with stress. Something which, if it's bad, it's pretty much just you are not as good. Now, maybe you're better in some other way, but still, it's a weakness. And city folk, city slickers, are probably the most vulnerable to it, which is why this is such an effective bloody protest. Tell Trudeau to give them what they want. Yeah, maybe you could argue that they should stop, but they're not. The other way to get them to stop is to tell Trudeau to give them what they want. This guy says, fun fact, my landlord is an anti-vaxxer and there's a giant fucking anti-vax convoy going through our town. He's allowing anti-vaxxers to sit in our parking lot honking their horns at night because he supports them. And they're all outside getting drunk and screaming. Sounds good. And then this guy says, my mental health can't take this any longer. I almost threw up from the constant honking at my office. I hope our members of parliament are safe and secure before things get bloody tonight. I want to fucking die, he says. Two interesting things with that one. Throwing up. Yes, it can be the result of stress, but you don't get stress just from this noise. Again, it must also be political, unless the throwing up is either a lie that you're telling everyone, or you really are just that weak that people disagreeing with you on a large scale makes you throw up, or you made yourself throw up for the memes. And you're hoping the members of parliament are safe, but the politicians, why do you care about them? Like, there's a lot of other people in the town, not just the members of parliament. Do you not care about their safety? It does seem remarkable to me when, like, if you asked almost anyone, do you trust corporate press, they would say no. And yet, almost all their information comes from corporate press, even if there's a proxy between them and the corporate press. If you ask anyone, do you trust a politician, they will say no. But then most of their beliefs about politics come from what politicians or the press say. If a politician says something sincerely that that fits in with their worldview, then they'll believe it just on its own. And maybe a lot of us are guilty of that too. But again, the amount that you claim to trust these groups is much less for many people, maybe some of us, than how much you act like you trust them, even if your information is coming by proxy. So I'm pretty sure that though there are very few people that watch the news in the US, those people still disperse that information out to almost everyone with just one or two steps. Such that, and maybe the news like it that way, because then it seems more authentic coming from someone you already know. It's just that the people you already know are not aware that the news is fucking lying to them, or lying to the person they got it from one step up the chain. The news, essentially, even though they don't have that many viewers, they do still maintain a monopoly on sort of newsable information, journalistic style information about politics and current events. And they're maintaining that monopoly by employing censorship on public platforms. Quote-unquote platforms, which aren't really anymore. And there's one more thing also, I feel like I mentioned this. I remember a day, and it's saddening that we've got to the point where I have to say I remember. I remember when anti-vaxxer used to be like flat earther. It used to be a small group of people who, sure, unlike flat earthers, they may have had some genuine concerns about the bodily integrity and whatnot. But a lot of them were just like, it has mercury in it. It has chemical with long name in it. It must be bad for me. And I respect that instinct, but it's not the appropriate venue for it. As long as you aren't being forced to take it. If you're being forced to take it, that's a bit different, especially in the US. But anti-vaxxers were generally speaking, or at least were presented as, or they were a small group. And usually their arguments seemed unreasonable, unscientific, ill-informed, etc., etc. Either way, they were a small group. Now the term has been, I think very deliberately, expanded to everyone who simply does not want to be injected with a new, unnecessary, experimental, deeply politicized, and seemingly grifty vaccine for, as I said, unnecessary, for a disease that appears to be either minor or gone. Those two things are very, very fucking different. And I've said this before, but I'm saying it again just so we don't fucking forget. Anti-vaxxer has been vastly broadened in its scope. Just like, well, racism wasn't even just broadened, it was almost inverted. Anti-vaxxer somewhat has as well. It's mostly just been broadened. But our opponent will... What Orwell may have got wrong about newspeak is that you can't just make up a word and people will adopt it unless you have full control. While you're gaining control, what you would tend to do is use already powerful words and just tell people they mean something they don't. That's what they've done with this. So just your daily, your occasional reminder, anti-vaxxer is still not an appropriate term for the group that we find ourselves in, skeptical of the least trustworthy vaccines in all human history. Probably, maybe, at least pretty close. That does not make you an anti-vaxxer. The vast majority of us still accept that scientifically, historically, in every other sense, the vast majority of vaccines have been good and useful. And the vast majority of the vaccines that are available today are safe and useful. Just this one. The vastly politicized, unnecessary, and very lucrative for some very evil people vaccine that's just sprung up along with this virus that appears to also have been engineered. And the same sort of people benefit from both things. It's all a bit too interconnected for my liking. And I don't tend to see these connections. I only form them as a result of force, a force of information. Anyway, next thing. Another of these great comics is G Prime 85 the one that makes all of these? Is that the name we're using? Because they're good. It's good art. So you got the trucker convoy here with it's all presented very positively. Nice weather. Everyone's in support of them, and this appears to be at least somewhat the picture. I don't really know how much of the Canadian public is in support of the trucker convoy, but it seems to be quite a lot. Generally good showing. Everyone's generally happy. They're all for Canada. They're all normal, good people. It's all looking pretty good and normal and standard. Freedom, please. We love Canada. No more lockdowns. No step on goose, please. It's polite, civil, and positive. Right? Obviously, this is a political comic from a perspective / propaganda, but it's still, I think it's fairly accurate. And then over here, you've got the black-faced Mulder-in-Chief himself saying fascists. The only person not enjoying it. And there's not much to this comic. It's actually kind of a leftist meme. Kind of just like, our enemy bad, we good. But at the same time, it do be this way. So not a very good meme, but it is a decent summary of the situation. Next thing. To be fair to me, Kittler, with that, if I was creating a visual meme, I wouldn't put all those words. I'm only doing the words because it's a stream. These streams last for hours, and the analysis is why I'm here. If it was just showing you a funny, then I wouldn't need to analyze it. You wouldn't probably need me anyway. You just look at the funny yourself. All right. Cynthia Holt on Facebook, I think, says, remember when BLM protests in the streets of Ottawa? Trudeau marched and took a knee with them, but he can't come meet and talk to the truckers? That tells you all you need to know. It doesn't really, but it tells you some things, yes. It may be that you could probably argue that he genuinely thinks that he might be in danger walking among the truckers. He probably doesn't. I don't think he would be. But more than amongst the astroturfed ally foot soldiers in BLM. Next thing. Yes. Workers should seize the means of production. Okay, say the Chad truckers. No! And I would give the analysis for this, but I already did earlier. So I wouldn't say anything else than what I said earlier. Next meme. Yes. No, this is actually really good news. So, do you guys remember her? Bottom left there? This girl? Girl. Do you remember her? I remember her. She was one of the first examples of cancerous social justice in the public eye. She was the one that said, die cis white men or something like that. She was like very hostile and aggressive. She'd made a few YouTube videos. It must have been like 2015, maybe 2014 that she made the videos. Somewhere around that time. And yeah, as Kittler says, turns out it was a phase. Here's her now. And I wouldn't necessarily call her attractive, but goddamn, she's a lot more attractive than she was. The distinction is immense. And the commentary on this is, remember the girl from my previous Die Cis Scum video? Well, this is her now. She came out as cis and admitted that her being transgender was just a phase and she has grown out of it. That's good. Honestly, this is probably the journey for a lot of them. We can't rely on this being the journey for all of them, but for a lot of them it will be. I do think all this social justice shit is just a fad. Now, it's definitely been pushed. This is possibly one of the first totally artificial trends in the history of the Western world. Which is not a fucking good thing. It's one of its worst trends as well. But it's become a social trend, the social justice ideology, and I think completely artificially. I think it was about dead in 2016. It was about ready to die. Ideologically, it had lost the war online, and then somehow, it just got a fuckload more momentum. I think certain groups did their initial investment, saw good results, and thought, yeah, we'll make this a thing. And since then, we've just been living in the cancerous society that created, among other things. Next meme. This is an example of how the news works, quote unquote, the news. Corporate propagandists. CNN politics. Trump's baseless wiretap claim. And then, a few months later, Donald Trump just flat out lied about Trump Tower wiretapping. And then 13 days later, exclusive US government wiretapped former Trump campaign chairman. And I think it did turn out that they wiretapped his hotel room as well. If I don't know if that's different. By the way, yeah, here's how the corporate press works. You'll have forgotten the earlier stories by the time you get to the later ones. The vast majority of people will have done anyway. And whoever posted this, well, they'll be censored. They'll be suppressed on the platforms because social media is also controlled by the same people that control the press. It's a fucking elegant system, but its downfall will come as the result of a critical mass of dissatisfaction being reached, and that mixed with a complacency of those in control. So far, I've been impressed with their lack of complacency, actually. But I think the critical mass then will just be even more the savage. And possibly the trucker thing will be Canada's critical mass. It might not solve the problem altogether, but it might change the momentum, change the direction of travel. Like I think Brexit and then 2019 did in the UK. Trump should have done in the US and did win twice. And if Biden had not been illegitimately inaugurated after the second election, the momentum might be fixed in a good direction in the US now. Unfortunately, he was inaugurated despite not winning the election. So they were able to wrench the momentum back in the wrong direction. But I don't think that'll last. I think that's a temporary matter. Next meme. Yes. Guy on the left says, "Hi, I'm California. We just passed SB 145. Then the guy shaking his hand says, "Hi, I'm an average American. What's SB 145? The Californian says, "It's a bill that reduces penalties on adults having sex with minors." And then the average American says, "You don't say," as they start sawing off the arm that they're currently shaking the hand with of the other guy. So yeah, did California actually do this? Because goddamn, yeah, 8-Bit Picky, I think that's the appropriate meme for Cabal to be posting at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if California had done this. It's the kind of thing they would do. Not a lot to say about it, really. The idea of using the term demonic to describe some of our opponent's actions purely as a metaphor, despite not being religious myself, I can definitely see the appeal. You see why Alex Jones has been doing it for years, though he should be clearer that he doesn't actually believe it's real demons, unless he does. But probably he does, which might not help him to be more accessible to people that want to think he's not insane. But yeah, no. Demons not real, but metaphorically speaking, demonic behavior, yes, real. He is a little bit insane, Eb, yes, I think. But perhaps his worst insanity is just playing along with the theme too much. Marsh says he doesn't literally believe it. Given he's probably a Christian, probably a pretty hardcore one, he probably does believe some of that stuff, some of the supernatural stuff. But I don't want to speak for him. I don't know for sure if he does. Marsh, I assume that he does not believe in literal interdimensional vampire goblins or whatever, like the things he talks about that are not merely religious. But I would suggest he probably does believe in demons. I don't know that, though. Just given he's probably very Christian. So, this is from 4chan, from 5 days ago. It says, the honking is so incredibly effective at causing accelerated menticide to the normal fags, it is tantamount to a miracle. There is no need to boil the frog or slow roll the honkening. These people have no principles or convictions. They will not fight for anything because they stand for nothing. Honking is literally the accelerate meme applied in real time. They are breaking down so fast that the narrative writers don't know what to do. We are not playing the same game as them, so why would we use their rules? There is only honk. And there are some good bits of this and some not so good bits. I think generally accelerationism is a bad idea, but I don't think that's what they're talking about here. I'm not sure why they use accelerate, because I don't think that's really... I don't think it's accelerationism either way. I don't think that's what they mean. A lot of what they say is right. The people that they're honking at don't really have convictions, don't really stand for anything. They just are addicted to the orthodox narrative because it keeps them popular, keeps them socially apt. They have given up too much to believe this nonsense. All their friends believe it, and if they stop believing it, they'll be chastised like they would do to those who would stop believing it. It's very much like what happened in socialist environments. Essentially, everyone knew the government was lying to them. The government knew they knew they were lying to them. And they knew the government knew they were lying to them, etc., etc. But everyone still maintained it. Everyone still maintained it. Just as the momentum and the threat. It would only take a threat from a small number of people to keep an entire nation cowed as long as it's done in the right order, with the right method. And that's all that there was. The threat was completely like there was no originating point of the threat except maybe the person right in charge at the top. Other than that, there was no originating point of the threat. It was all self-sustaining. It was all cycling constantly throughout the system, the threat. If suddenly, spontaneously, people had just stopped obeying and that had just spread, there would have been no way to stop it. Except genocide. Or something similar. But if it just naturally stopped gradually, then it would just stop. That would have been it. There was nothing in practice holding everyone down. But any individual person, everyone was doing that. And so they all maintained that the bullshit threat narrative, distributed authority, distributed tyranny that kept the system going. And that's essentially a soft version of that is what we have today. It's hasn't got all of us yet, But we see among the mainstream Orthodox that it's very pervasive. It works in exactly that way. It's not quite as severe, but it's only a matter of time. Next meme. Won't someone please think of the shitting cats? And for some reason, there was more than one of them saying this as well. More than one of them complaining that their cats were shitting because of the honking. And someone pointed out, like, yeah, you hear about more than one of them talking about their cats shitting because of the honking, but none of them, not a one, saying, my baby was kept awake all night because of the honking. It makes you think. Anyway, next meme. Silly Canadians, laws are for poor people, says Castro. Next meme. Yes, the whole idea of a liberal system is that no one is above the law. No one. Probably a lot of you, maybe the Zoomers in the audience think, really? No one's above the law? Not even the rich? No, no one. No, everyone is equal under the law. That's the idea of the countries we set up. If that ever stops being true, that will be the way it goes wrong. And that currently has happened. Ebb says the Grand Wizard is above the law. In Cabal, yes, because I am the law. I am the dictator. In a liberal society, which is a society I advocate, the law is absolute. It's above everyone. Everyone's equal under it. In a dictatorship, however, the dictator is above the law. And Cabal is run as a dictatorship because it's small enough and assumedly short-term enough. Like, if I expected it to last hundreds of years, maybe it would eventually be better to make it into a democracy. Like, if it's to last beyond me, then dictatorship is not really the right pattern. But since I can trust myself, since I think I've done a good job so far, it makes sense to run it as a dictatorship for now. And to be fair, like, a small group, a small tribe of like 10 people, when one of them is a leader, is in the same way a dictatorship. It's just a community that has a leadership figure. And as in at least monarchies and some dictatorships, the opinions of the people have a significant effect upon what the leader does. Any system that is well led, the people will have influence, soft or otherwise, over the leader. The only real difference in democracy is that we've codified it properly. It doesn't require bloodshed anymore. Plugged some gaps, some natural issues that arise when you do it just by intuition rather than doing it codified. Next meme. Yes, the truckers should tell the government, the sooner you comply, the sooner we can go back to normal. We're all in this together. If you see anyone whining on the streets, this is a good thing to say to them. Just see what they say. They probably just shout at you and tell you, my wife went to stay with a male friend because of you. And then my cat shit on my face. Quite a lot of them appear to have those issues. I wonder if that's an indication of something. Next meme. Yeah, so I think we may have seen this before. You get a donut for getting a vaccine. That, by the way, I think is like illegal. Coercion for medical treatment. I think that's like widely. It may even be a human rights issue. Like, that's very, very wrong. Just casually giving away a donut for. I mean, that's implied by the image. I don't know that's what's happened. But casually giving away something to get a medical procedure done. That's not a casual matter. That might be in the Geneva Convention for all that's Geneva Convention is treating prisoners in war, isn't it? So it's going to be in some sort of like major international human rights document. Coercion for medical treatments. It's fucking wrong to do that in any case. The fact that it's happening in Western countries is absurd. Either way, I wasn't really thinking about that to bring this up. I was more thinking about this. The meme caption is, people like this are just cattle, which is something that Cabal and I can agree on. Well, Cabal, press 1 if you agree that people like this are just cattle. And taken as a metaphor, in many ways, I would have to agree. Classic, they may not actually be doing it. That might just be a manager making the threat, an ideological manager making the threat, but then the boots on the ground aren't going to enforce it, possibly. If you want to know what I'm talking about, Classic just linked a threat from Ottawa police that anyone trying to provide material support to demonstrators could be subject to arrest. Under what charge, exactly? I mean, I'm sure they can find something, but it won't be a reasonable charge. Right. Next. Yeah, so this is that same hypocrisy that we saw before, but more. So then, beautiful, fuck their history, let's deface them. A bunch of rioters and lefty rioters defacing a bunch of statues, putting their iconography all over them and vandalizing them and destroying them, etc., etc. And then now, these honking racists just defaced a statue and put garbage in a neat pile. And yeah, there's this, yes, they put their iconography on the statue. It's only as wrong as the least wrong of these things up here. Still maybe a bad look, but it's not too bad. And then, yeah, they apparently tidied up after themselves. Like, as this guy says, name one other protest ever where that's happened. There probably have been some, but it's not fucking common. Like, that's pretty good. It's pretty high standards for a protest. Most of them will just leave the shit everywhere. Next meme. Happy Black History Month to the most successful African American in history, Elon Musk. Congratulations, Mr. Musk. So I think he's South African, isn't he? Children now want a donut. I'm too tired to be hungry. I might wrap up before we reach the end of the memes here. I'm about 2/3 of the way through. And for those who missed it at the beginning, I said that the reason I haven't been streaming much recently is my sleep pattern's been broken, which does happen to me occasionally. It takes a few days to set it back. It's almost there now. But when I started streaming, I was about ready to go to bed. So you'll excuse me if I don't do the whole stream. And any time in the top left will carry over to the next stream. The rightmost of the time is in the top left is how long is still to go in the stream. All right. Next meme. Yes, this is interesting. Follow the money, recommends the meme. And here's 4 headlines. Blackstone announces appointment of Jeffrey B. Kindler, former chairman and CEO of Pfizer, as senior advisor. August 4th, 2020. Neil Young sells 50% of entire song catalog rights to Hypnosis. January 6th, 2021. Next headline, Blackstone and Hypnosis Song Management launch $1 billion partnership to invest in songs, recorded music, music IP, and royalties, October 12th. And then Neil Young demands Spotify remove his music over Joe Rogan vaccine misinformation on 25th Jan, I think. So yeah, I mean, there is a trail there. It may not be a particularly well, it is fairly strong, actually. It's not as strong as it possibly could be, but it's still pretty strong. It's, of course, possible that Neil Young is just ideological, but it's also very possible it's not. Who in chat is accidentally heckling some background noises? Make sure that if you are in live, you're not broadcasting unintentionally. Nigger. Thanks. I really appreciate that coming through on the stream VOD. Who was that? But was that Theo, chat, by the way? They've dobbed you in, Theo. Right. That'll be the last heckling Theo does for a while. Anyway, next thing. Justin Trudeau says, while many of us are working from home, there are others who aren't able to do that, like the truck drivers who are working day and night to make sure our shelves are stocked. So when you can, please hashtag thank a trucker for everything they're doing and help them however you can. Righto, Justin. We absolutely will. Chat, I would like you to put this image everywhere you possibly can. Now, it's notable that this is posted on April 1st. Someone might say, well, it was an April Fool's joke, but it wasn't. Next meme. Breaking. Heard on Freedom Convoy 2020's Zello channel. Moments ago, massive ship horn is being transported into Ottawa at this very moment. I wonder if anyone who is in Ottawa currently can corroborate whether this happened. This is kind of an, oh no, situation, isn't it? Classic says, I think it made it. Fantastic. I see Deng is typing. Deng is in Ottawa. It's been giving us a lot of information. Deng says, can confirm ship horn heard yesterday. Fantastic. Good to know that the bullshit I read in random memes that get posted in Cabal as screenshots from randomers on social media, that some of them actually have a connection to reality. That's convenient. That some of what I say isn't total bullshit. That's pretty great. I like that. Good. May the honking commence and continue and never cease until you win. Sometimes YouTube does some things right. There he is. Old Adolf Castro himself. Yeah. Very good. Next meme. Ah, yes. Now we have to talk about this. This is very important. So, the actual address was given on the original version of this image. For whatever ass covering bullshit, I'm not showing it. I'm showing the version that had it censored. But 4chan did what 4chan does. It's still remarkable to me that anyone, especially politicians, aren't wise to this shit. But yeah, 4chan will fucking find you. They need very little to find you. And so, oh man, He Will Not Divide Us was so much fucking fun. I loved watching that. I would love nothing more. This would be even better if we start a new one with Trudeau. What fucking cuckshed in the middle of the woods will Trudeau retreat to next? Oh, 4chan's found it again. Chat, press 1 if you want He Will Not Divide Us. It's not even season 2, is it? He Will Not Divide Us, the fucking reboot with dividing Justin Castro's butt cheeks. Cuckshed, very much fit a duck, yes. Honk will not divide us. Well, ultimately it'll unite us. Although for a time it will divide. He will not divide us. Divide harder. Yeah, that's true, Kittler. Kittler says the travel of shade of a wall is enough, as shown in Huundu round 3. It's amazing what they can use. Yeah, exactly. Classic. It's a mansion. He's retreated to a mansion. The thing is, people know where this is. I haven't shown it here. It's blocked, but people know where this is. I do wonder if anyone's turned up. Does anyone in chat happen to know if anyone's turned up at Justin's house? Because I tell you what, like the amount of pressure that's on Justin right now, I am not advocating for what I'm about to say. I am merely speculating on the effect it would have in principle. If even one truck showed up outside and beeped semi-regularly and refused to leave, that could just fucking tip Justin over the edge. Yeah, Classic says the number of guards that will be there, holy shit. He might have, again, moved. In fact, Ravelon says Justin was moved again immediately. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, he should have fucking known better. They obviously were going to find you. I looked at I won't go through the details of each part of the image here, chat, but I did look at this earlier, and yeah, it looks about right. It looks good. Everything matches up. Classic says, not to say where it is, but it's easily within driving distance of Ottawa. Fair enough. I will leave to you guys actual logistics if you want to do that. And again, I am not advocating nor condemning. Here is the do not crime, except to the extent that it may be a crime. I, of course, advocate do not crime. And yeah, again, it is a mansion, essentially. It's very nice. He just essentially went to his probably second home, maybe third or fourth, who knows. So, Theo, I did see that image. I decided not to show it because I hit the wrong thing, sorry. Because I think it's mostly normal variation or bad lighting, and a bad freeze frame. Like, a person does not change that much in a month, even with stress. It's probably coincidence. But it's a good image. Like, that's how he is inside, I think. That's what's changed inside. The actual visuals on the surface don't tell you much, except they are a good visual metaphor. Capstasher says, I have a test for you. You will be presented with 2 sets of political cartoons. One is a leftist set, one is genuine. You have to find out which is which. Is that, okay, that's set 1 and that's set 2. What's the distinction here? So Capstasher set up a test for this. This is a nice idea. Let's try this. Why is a leftist set one as genuine? What do you mean leftist set and genuine? Like, the leftist ones are also genuine, right? What do you mean by that? What am I discerning? Which are real, which are Poe? Well, I'll wait for Stasher to answer. I think I know already. Satire leftist and genuine leftist. Okay. Okay, I see. I see you posted that before. I didn't see that. All right, so the second set has the truck flying into the Twin Towers that says free speech on it. That looks like it's barely even parody. Like, free speech is something that even the left say they support, even though they don't. When I first saw that, I thought that the free speech had been added on over something else, over what was originally there. But if it's not, since you've posted it, then it would be that set. That set would be the parody. The second set would be the parody. The first set would be the genuine ones. Now, it also, like, that was my guess anyway. But while I was giving the explanation, I noticed that it's, yeah, as Sasha just said, I noticed that G Prime is the author, and he was the one that made some of the other cartoons from earlier. So, yeah, I think I am correct. Also, I did see the Rogan one, and yeah, it looks like very over the top. So yeah, I think I guessed correctly. So yeah, that's good. Which means it's effective satire, I guess. All right, so back over here. Yeah, so this is the I don't think it's the only, but it's the one of the main indications I have so far. It's just one tweet. One of the main indications I have so far that there is this pattern. Given that it's from our opponents, it's more likely to be true because they wouldn't want it to be. So this Twitter user says, walked through the convoy this morning, told an officer I thought downtown Ottawa residents were tired of it and ready for police to do something. He responded, quote, I think Canadians are tired of lockdowns. Another told me he was too busy eating his donut. Based. So chat, anyone who is there, do you have a sort of rough idea of the attitude of the police? I haven't heard of any actual clashes yet, and I don't doubt that that's what the authorities at this point would ask them to do. So they probably are unwilling to go too hard. Mentioned donuts twice, and Shilgon now must have one. So, chat. Deng says police won't even give parking tickets. Extremely based. Fantastic. Yeah, that might make it. Like, that might be the distinguishing factor. That might be if the police were going to go against them, then it might not have worked. But if they're not, goddamn, like, this has real potential. You could crack the whole government with this. I mean, Jesus, what option do they have at that point for enforcement? They send in the army. It's a fucking... the police and the people versus the fucking army. The army won't fight that. No way. Yeah, there's nothing they can do in terms of force. They would either have to use the local citizens, which is very unlikely given the police are on the protesters' side. Propaganda is only so good on its own. It has to do something. Or maybe outlast them. That's unlikely to work. Like that's the best chance the Canadian government has right now that I can think of, is just outlast them. Yeah, Rav, indeed. Like the army, there's no way. There's no way they fight the police and the citizens for the corrupt government, for Trudeau in retreat. There's no way. Feronius says the police won't directly intervene, but they apparently got GoFundMe to fuck over their fundraiser, but they caved and decided to refund the donors instead of sending it to trusted charities or so laundering. Yeah, so that's good. So I strongly doubt that the police on the ground are the ones that got the GoFundMe thing deleted. That would have been the police management, I'm guessing, because that's usually where the problem is with the police. The police on the ground are usually okay, at least, but they're enforcing policies set by ideological tyrants in management. Indeed, Rav. Indeed. Yes, Vil, I would hope that would be illegal for them to just give it to someone else. Like, the how blatant is it that people give money to a political cause and then the middleman takes that money on a whim and gives it to an opposing political cause? That's absurdly wrong. That's the kind of thing that should end that company. One thing would be the end of GoFundMe forever. That's how bad that is. Them refunding it is the absolute bare minimum. They should be giving it to the people that actually received money. Now, I mentioned earlier that it's somewhat understandable given the government have essentially declared it illegal. GoFundMe might actually be at legal risk if they give them money. But that it took convincing for them to give the money back to the donors is an indication that they were happy to fuck over the protesters. That it wasn't just ass covering. So, chat, before we continue, if you enjoy the show, and now that I've brought it back after a few days, and you want to continue, as well as supporting everything else I do in Cabal, including the big new code base I'm working on, so that I can code much more interesting and better design stuff in future, with more platform independence and just better code in general, and you want to support all that, you want to see it happen more often, then send contributions via tip.oozloo.net. I strongly rely on that, as the contributions via fund.oozloo.net don't make up a very significant amount of my monthly requirements. Though they definitely help. I definitely rely on tips during the show. Remember that the multiplier will increase. It looks like it's come back down from the ×2 floor it's supposed to be at. Not sure why that's happened. It should be at ×2. I'll look into that later. But if it's not impossible with the multiplier up high enough that you could knock off the stream boss right now. Either way, your contributions will appear large and proud on stream, and you get the satisfaction of knowing that you directly make it possible for me to keep doing these streams. So thank you in advance for any contributions, chat. Right, next thing. Media is the virus. I think this might have been another picture taken directly by Deng, if I remember correctly. But yeah, there's probably I've seen quite a few good slogans from around the protest, and it's all good stuff. Like these are the people that have been like observing the culture war for the last few years in the working class and have the right idea. They're on our side of the fence. They may not have as much nuance in mind, though many of them probably do. But they have the right idea. Thank you, Eb. Eb says vote one if one. So what you're saying is, if one were to vote one, then one would have won. Anyway, next thing. Disclose.tv says, New. Ottawa City Council says we need to cut off the pipeline of funding to these mercenaries that are unlawfully protesting and occupying our communities. I love how they just look like the worst kind of people as well. Old, rich, complacent, naive, despite being old as well. Champagne socialists or something similar. They're awful. So yeah, I don't doubt that these guys have very little power, and I hope it continues that way. Next meme. Ah yes. Italian shark has virgin birth after 10 years in all-female shark tank. The baby shark was born in an all-female tank with no father in sight. Wake up, babe, new Jesus just dropped. And of course, here is the new Jesus. For all you non-VTuber fans, suffer, dancing guru. Anyway, I wonder if, chat, you might indulge me in my attempt to solve this mystery. It's not a virgin birth. Spoiler alert, it's not a virgin birth. It is much more likely, and this is the most likely scenario I could think of, is that one of the keepers deliberately impregnated the shark so they could get this headline. It does seem far-fetched, but think about how many aquariums there are, how many aquarium keepers there are, and how many times this hasn't happened. Yes, right. Not with their penis, but regardless impregnated it. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think is the answer to this? Because this is the kind of riddle that probably does have a simple answer. And I think that's it. I think someone has deliberately inseminated it. Naki says, fine, I'm persuaded. Here's some shekels. I would prefer to keep my funding in the monthly format because I attend pretty much anyone's stream so rarely these days. So I might just pop up that once more. Thank you, Nakavine. However you choose to support me is appreciated. Right. What's that? Female shark learns to reproduce without males after years alone, says Visitor. Okay, maybe it is a virgin birth then. What do I know about fish? Fine. Maybe it is. Next meme then. This one's not loading. Maybe the original page has gone. Oh, that one's fucked. Never mind. Next meme.
That's a nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source? My source is that I made it the fuck up.
EU proposes labeling gas as climate friendly with that video to accompany it. Very appropriate. This is what they would do if they were pawns of Russia. Just another reason I'm glad we Brexited. What do you reckon, chat? If you're British, are you glad we are not involved with this fucking hive of scum and villainy? And if you're European, are you glad that you soon hopefully won't be? For those that don't know, and I'm not particularly knowledgeable, but this is what little I know. Europe relies quite a lot for energy on natural gas from Russia, which is pumped via a big pipeline. And with that, Russia has pressure, has leverage that they can use against Europe. And doing this would probably save Russia some money by getting around some international regulations. Or maybe open the way for heavier integration with the Russian gas around Europe. Russia's probably willing to sweeten the deal to grease some palms. Or maybe just greasing some palms in Brussels and elsewhere in the EU to make sure that that they can set up stronger infrastructure. Russia is trying to buy Europe with national gas, and the EU is more than happy to let them do it. It's disgusting, frankly. Next meme. This is the first time it happened, Shay. You see, most people think that the Canadian convoy is a relatively new phenomenon, but no, it's been happening all throughout history, and this was the first. The very first honkening back in Neolithic cave people times. It's a ridiculous, stupid image, but it's quite funny. I don't know what to say about it, though. I'll move on. Oh, this is quite good, actually. I kind of like the style of early 20th century propaganda posters. I would like to see that return in the new 20s. So this is a early 20th century propaganda style poster with a bunch of different fonts on it, but somehow it works with the following text: calling all mediocre males. Women's medals, records, scholarships, and sponsorships are now up for grabs. Live your dream by ruining theirs. Call the ACLU now to find out how you can get in on the action. And it's the only example I've seen of this style of propaganda applied to modern issues, but I rather like it. I'd like to see more. Chat, press 1 if you like this style. Or your airbender faggot. Wow, Theo is airbender faggot. Interesting. Kittler's trying to avoid it deliberately. See, I wasn't going to spring the trap until Theo was the first other person to press 1 that I thought I would. Alright. Next thing. This is one of those stories that makes me question whether I'm actually awake. Rudy Giuliani unmasked on The Masked Singer prompts judges to walk out. The fuck? 2 judges on The Masked Singer walked off after Rudy Giuliani unmasked himself at the end of a show taping, a source close to the show told CNN Wednesday. Robin Thicke and Ken Jeong walked off the stage following the revelation of Giuliani as a contestant on the popular Fox reality show in which contenders perform in full costume until they are eliminated. Chat, against my better judgment, do you want me to try and find the clip for this? Do you want to see Rudy Giuliani attempting to sing, and then when he reveals himself to be Rudy Giuliani, the judges run away? Do you want me to try and find this clip? It might not exist. I don't want to raise your hopes for nothing. There might not be a clip of it available. But there also might be. Oh, there is. Capstasher has the meme. Alright. Alright, kids. I'll put the video on. Jesus Christ. What have I done?
Drama on the set of the popular TV show The Masked Singer after Rudy Giuliani was revealed as a contestant. Judges Robin Thicke and Ken Jeong reportedly left the stage in protest when they saw Giuliani remove his giant costume. Fellow judges Jenny McCarthy and Nicole Scherzinger remained on stage and bantered with Giuliani, a top Donald Trump advisor. A promo for the singing...
Not just a top Donald Trump advisor. He's the guy's lawyer, personal friend.
Competition was just released, introducing the new masked characters.
The good, the bad, and the cuddly.
So which one is Giuliani, the Green Ogre, the Frog Prince? We won't know for sure until March 9th, when the 7th season premieres. This isn't the first time The Masked Singer has featured a polarizing political figure. Former vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin was unveiled in 2020.
Governor Sarah Palin!
What a ridiculous show. How the hell does this show exist? How the hell do they get these people to do this? Yeah, as Bright says, the man removes the mafia from New York. Donald Trump's friend. So, where is the footage of actually what happened with Rudy? They're not gonna. It's not here, is it? No, it's not here. They're talking about the event that has happened, but there's no footage of it. Maybe there's a licensing issue to show it or something. Rudy Giuliani, masked Scringer. That's the one we just watched. That's not it either, I don't think.
So, this story will blow your
It's already blown my mind. I don't need you to tell me about it.
two impeachments who vigorously
Get on with it. Stop lying about them.
Voices are distorted, but they're giving clues about this celebrity in the costume. So,
no, there is no footage available here. Chat, if you can find footage, I will show it. But I'm not seeing any here. That's a shame. Are you sure it wasn't live? Oh, it hasn't been broadcast yet. Okay, fair enough. Maybe that's why. All right, next meme. I did enjoy the God of War boy memes. So Atreus, who has another name, but I won't spoil it, says, "That game looks good, I'm going to pre-order it." Kratos says, "Quiet, boy. Let the reviews come first and buy it after it releases. They are not going to run out of digital copies." I did kind of like this game, actually. It's rare to see a game, especially a popular one, that shows a positive masculine father-son relationship, but it did. It was actually pretty good. I liked the story. I didn't play it, actually. I watched someone else playing it, which I usually do with games these days. The gameplay probably wouldn't have kept me engaged enough because it wasn't that interesting. But the story was pretty good. I saw some of it bright, yeah. It was actually pretty good. Theo says it will release March 9th. Oh, Jesus, that's ages. Well, we'll try to remember it. Yeah, well, Feronius, at least you can judge the quality of a game by which lies the reviewers tell. Also, not all reviews are bullshit. Your average content creator that you trust somewhat more than the others will give you a better impression. Lauren Southern's still kicking around. That's good to hear. She says there's an Instagram account called Ottawa Convoy Report, and they're literally just publishing anyone's reports of violence with no verification. A few people are making some important reports about a horrible man named Samuel Hyde. So, I recommend... and this wouldn't be criminal either. It's lying on the internet, but that's not criminal. I recommend, chat, as long as it's not official and there's no legal issue with doing so, that you tell them that a man named Justin Castro is the cause of the entire protest, and that he has been involved in dodgy international and national affairs in Canada for years, and has also been seen with blackface in the past. See if they pick it up. I doubt it, but it's a fun idea. Yeah. Indeed, Daka. When they're digital, it really doesn't make sense to pre-order. Luckily for Onius, this is not official. It's not official government stuff. I don't think. I think it's just an Instagram account. Next up. Ah, yes. Whoopi Goldberg. Whoopi Goldberg and her attack against the other Bergs was a story that I was going to talk about a little bit, but probably not much. Didn't seem like I could say a lot about it. But it has been interesting to follow just how cancerous it's been, especially because, according to someone, it was Black History Month just the moment that she did it. And now she has been widely cancelled. And it's probably just like one offhanded comment that she made on the momentum of trying to support an argument that she had already started. She wouldn't even have said it under normal circumstances. It probably just slipped out. But now she's going to be pilloried and she's going to have to make 1 million apologies, 6 million apologies, actually. Then maybe she'll be allowed back in the spotlight. But probably a fair chance that her international career is done. That her visible public career is done. Not for certain, but there's a chance of it. And I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy. She's helped to foster a culture in which a person can be deleted from society as a result of one, probably mistaken statement. A statement that they wouldn't have meant if they had had a little bit of time to think about it. And then even the ones that people do mean, the ones that need to be said, the ones that oppose tyranny. Oh, that's racist for some reason. Anyway. For those wondering, Whoopi Goldberg said that the Holocaust wasn't about race, which is somewhat true. It wasn't just about a demographic or race, depending on whose definition you're using. It was about race, but it was also about other things. So she was half right. So, 3 teenage girls have invented a drinking straw that can detect if a drink has been spiked. If the drink contains GHB or ketamine, the 2 most common date rape drugs, the straw changes colour. 1, I doubt they invented it. But 2, good that it was invented. Hollywood bans use of straws. Yeah, so this was a while ago. I don't know if these headlines are exactly accurate, and the timing might not have been as is implied here, but it's reasonable to assume there is a connection given it's Hollywood. I think you all know enough for me to leave it at that. Next up, a Twitter user by the name of Truckistan Amposo, who's been talking about the event in Ottawa, says, breaking, Polish immigrants just arrived in Ottawa with thousands of Polish sausages and bread for the truckers. Quote, we came from communism, we want a free country. Unstoppably based. Chat, I recommend posting the Chad emote immediately. And possibly the Polish flag as well. And maybe the Canadian flag too. Hey, the Polish and Canadian flag share the same colours. Good for that. Next up. Yes. This may be our last one, actually. Yeah, it is. So, this is essentially just some women on Reddit saying, I'm upset, don't like it, it's all awful, big, strong, muscular, throbbing men. And then one person says, actually, there's quite a few women amongst them. And then the respondent says, basically, that the men look rugged. Like the picture at the bottom with the, well, I mean, I'm in the place of the chud right now. I'm not much of a trucker. The women just can't help themselves in Ottawa. It's like they're surrounded by soy boys all their life, and then a bunch of actual men come into the town. It's like, oh, that's what they're supposed to look like. Well, shit. Won't be long before the women of Ottawa are like, let them stay. Then their husbands are like, where does she go at night? I guess she's just going to my male boss's house. I mean, I know that she spent a lot of time there before the truckers arrived, etc., etc. All cuck bullshit. Anyway, that is it for news and memes. And there's loads more memes in Meme Shrine and Cabal that I haven't looked at yet. However, we are over 3 hours in. I did not do a short stream today. I, in fact, did a normal length stream. And that will be the end of it, even though there's still an hour left on the clock. That hour will carry over to the next stream. But for now, I'm going to wrap up. I'm very tired. I need to go to bed now. But thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm not going to do a premium post show today, but this is an exception. I've done it every other stream since I introduced the notion. I'm very tired today. I will do them. I'll start doing them again as soon as I can. Maybe I'll do an earlier stream tomorrow so I can fit more in. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Best of luck to Canada. Honestly, it's on a pretty good course right now. I think the enemy would have to try something pretty nuanced to get rid of them. They must keep firm in their convictions. They must keep it. They are on the right track, in my humble opinion. They must just stick it out. Do not leave until you win. You're on the right track. Just keep it up. So yes, thank you everyone for watching. And is there anything else that I need to mention? I don't think so. So the things I just have mentioned. I've already done various shilling, but thank you for the contributions. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. I'll probably be working on code for a bit, but I will try to do streams every day again now, which doesn't leave a lot of time for code, but I'll try to find time. All right. Thank you, chat, and good night.